Shadow Slave, Eternal Madness. Author, Rzxs chapter 51-70. The first thing Kevin did was summon his spear. He looked around, searching for enemies, but found none. He took a deep breath and exhaled. Where am I? He had some guesses, like the forest next to Bastion. Even though it had been destroyed by Anvil of Valor, some remains still existed. The problem was that the Bastion forest wasn't burned, unlike this one. Other possibilities included areas near Ravenheart, known for their volcanic environment. But Kevin had another guess, one that made him tremble in fear. Kevin was a boy who sought knowledge. He believed that what determined victory in battle wasn't just an aspect, but how one used the environment to their advantage. So he read a lot: books, research papers, forbidden texts. One such document, written by an unknown author, described the Forgotten Shore. In one of the pages, the author depicted the regions surrounding the Forgotten Shore. To the north of the Forgotten Shore lies a burned forest. That was all the information available. If Kevin truly was in the burned forest, he might as well kill himself and die peacefully. This wasn't just an unknown area, it was a death zone. Sigh. I should search for food or other sleepers. If we gather, maybe we can survive. Taking a deep breath, he started walking. Even though he was in a deadly area, he had to remain calm, the first lesson taught at the Awakened Academy. Kevin gripped his spear tighter. Something felt wrong. He looked around for enemies, but found nothing. After a while, he started sweating. No enemies, no threats, yet the sensation of being watched grew stronger. He stopped in front of a burned tree. No way, right. Taking a deep breath, he gathered air around the tip of his spear, forming a vortex. Then, he hurled the spear at the burned tree. The spear launched forward, striking its target with force. Crack! The sound of steel breaking echoed through the area. Kevin's eyes widened. Even though he had thrown the spear with full strength, the burned tree didn't have a single scratch. His instinct screamed at him to run. But the tree didn't move. Kevin exhaled, summoning another spear. Being born in a clan associated with clan valor had its benefits, even if they were forced to join. Shaking his head, Kevin turned and ran. The sound of his spear breaking must have alerted the abominations nearby. Rushing through the burned forest, Kevin suddenly felt something behind him. He reacted instantly, jumping forward and spinning midair. A spear of air formed in his hand, and he launched it at the unknown figure. At the last second, his eyes caught sight of black hair and amethyst eyes. Shit. Kevin gritted his teeth and redirected the spear at the last moment. Sighing, he turned to Rachel and snapped. Can't you at least reveal yourself? I was going to kill you. Rachel stared at him blankly. I did. Kevin took a deep breath. Talking to Rachel was pointless. She was just that type of person. It's good to see you. Rachel simply nodded. Kevin sighed. Did you see anyone else? Rachel shook her head. Well, we need to find a safe place. I'll take the front, you watch our backs. Rachel nodded and summoned her daggers. With that, the two of them ventured deeper into the burned forest. It had been 2 days since they were summoned into the dream realm. Kevin and Rachel were running through the burned forest. Just now, they had heard the sound of something blowing up. The normal reaction would be to run the other way, but there was a chance the sound had been made by a human. So they ran toward it, hoping to get there before whoever it was died. Glancing at Rachel, who was running beside him, Kevin frowned. Rachel looked tired, very tired. It might have been because they hadn't eaten in 2 days. But as sleepers, they could hold out for a while longer. Looking ahead, Kevin raised his hand, signaling Rachel to stop. In an open area, free of burned trees, stood a giant man clad in massive armor. He wielded a hammer in one hand and a shield in the other. The giant man was battling against a black millipede, a monstrous creature 1.5 meters long, its armored body as wide as an adult man's torso. Instead of mandibles, it had a human-like mouth full of needle-like fangs. Behind the armored man stood a young girl with green twin ponytails and brown eyes. Kevin recognized them immediately. Ren and Amy. Rachel, already preparing to help, tensed to jump in. Kevin quickly stopped her. Let's wait for an opportunity. Going in blindly will waste a perfect chance to attack. Rachel nodded. Exploiting weaknesses and attacking from blind spots were what made an assassin fearsome. She had just let her emotions take over. Kevin observed the millipede closely. Ren's hammer couldn't even scratch it. His eyes narrowed as he noticed something. He turned to Rachel and pointed at the millipede's stomach. That part isn't armored. If we attack it there, we might be able to kill it. Rachel followed his gaze and nodded. The moment the millipede turned its back to them, the two launched forward. Ren, still fighting the beast, was momentarily surprised, but he quickly regained focus. Kevin thrust his spear, but clang, the spear rebounded. Kevin wasn't surprised. He wasn't the main attacker. The millipede twisted, locking its horrifying gaze onto Kevin. Raising its massive tail, it lashed out, intending to crush him. But when its tail lifted, so did its body, exposing its stomach. Rachel, who had been invisible, didn't waste the opportunity. She thrust her dagger deep into its exposed flesh. The millipede let out a deafening screech of pain. Unfortunately, the dagger was too short to kill it in one strike. Rachel retreated immediately, vanishing once again. The millipede, now enraged and surrounded, raised its head and let out a piercing scream. Kevin and the others felt their heads spin, their weapons suddenly heavy in their hands. The millipede lunged toward Kevin, its monstrous mouth opening wide to end him once and for all. But before it could, it suddenly stopped. It wasn't by choice. Ren, still dizzy, had managed to grab its tail. Kevin's eyes widened. Throw it into the sky. Ren didn't hesitate. With all his strength, he hurled the millipede into the air. Kevin gathered air around the tip of his spear, making it spin like a drill. With everything he had, he hurled it at the airborne beast. The spear pierced through the millipede's stomach, exiting from the other side. With a thunderous crash, the millipede slammed into the ground, dead. A mechanical voice echoed in Kevin's head. You have slain an awakened beast, newborn millipede. Kevin exhaled sharply. Behind him, Rachel reappeared, looking even more exhausted. Walking toward Ren and Amy, he found them both staring at him. Inside his helmet, Ren grinned. Looks like your instinct was right. Kevin shrugged, making Ren laugh. Amy looked at Kevin and said softly, I'm sorry, I couldn't help at all. Kevin smiled. No, it was the right choice. If you had used your ability, we would have been fighting more than just one. Amy nodded, reassured. The four decided to rest for a while before continuing their exploration of the burned forest. Sitting down, Kevin stared at the dead millipede. Something felt wrong. Ren noticed his expression and asked, What's wrong? Kevin's grip on his spear tightened. I don't know, but something isn't right. Especially that scream it let out. Ren smirked. Maybe it was a mating call. Kevin chuckled. Yeah, maybe. He looked back at the millipede's corpse. Suddenly, his expression darkened. Fuck. He sprang to his feet. We need to go, now. The other three were startled but didn't hesitate. The four bolted into the burned forest, dodging between charred trees. Ren, running beside him, demanded, What's going on? Kevin's voice was grim. It wasn't a mating call. That millipede was calling for help. Ren's face turned pale. And just as Kevin had feared, a swarm of millipedes surged behind them. Each one was far larger than the one they had just killed. Especially the one leading the pack, it was 3 times the size of the first millipede. Even though they were running at full speed, they were still far slower than the approaching horde. Kevin gritted his teeth and shouted, Rachel, invisibility. Now. Rachel nodded and immediately cast her ability, veiling them in invisibility. They hid behind a large, charred tree. Kevin used his ability to erase their scent. No one moved. The veil made them invisible, but not silent. The swarm surged past them. Kevin wanted to sigh in relief, but he held his breath. Crack. His heart stopped. Beside him, a stick had snapped in half. He had no idea how it broke, even his spear couldn't scratch these trees. But none of that mattered. Because that tiny sound had been heard. Kevin watched in paralyzed fear as the swarm turned toward them. They couldn't do anything. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. Not just the millipedes. The wind, the air, time itself. From the sky, a young man descended. Black eyes, curly black hair, a crystal monocle over his right eye, a black pointed hat on his head. The young man landed and looked at them. "Hello. Can you hear me?" Kevin, still frozen, stared between the stranger and the motionless swarm. It had to be his doing. Who are you?" The young man sighed. "Didn't your parents teach you manners? You should introduce yourself first." Kevin's mind raced. The young man grinned. "Well, you want to know who I am, right?" He removed his pointed hat, placing it over his chest. Time resumed. Behind him, the swarm exploded, one by one. A sea of black blood covered the ground. The young man bowed slightly. "I'm Aemon, the child of time, one of the 6 children of Raphael, the Black Emperor. Dash 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 dash." You want to hear a fun fact? Smiley face. The one who was making Kevin paranoid was Aemon. He was also the one who broke the stick. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the Fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic, chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Hand waving. Kevin's mind raced. How could it not, when the man in front of him declared himself as the son of the man who had killed his father, the one hated by the entire world. Raphael, the Black Emperor. Also known as the Devil, the one who betrayed his own race for power. He had sent hundreds of thousands of abominations to attack Falcon Scott. If not for the Awakeners who resisted the hordes of abominations until the clans came to the rescue, millions of lives would have been lost. Not to mention what he had done during the Battle of the Black Skull. Even though Kevin felt anger, he didn't show it. He didn't dare. The man in front of him, Aemon, spoke of Raphael as if he were talking about a god. Kevin could clearly see that Aemon was proud to be his son. Kevin feared that if he showed even the slightest hatred toward Amon's father, Aemon might kill them. "You're the son of that devil," Amy blurted out. Kevin's skin turned pale as he glanced at Amy. Amy had always been a naive girl, someone who spoke her mind without hesitation. But now, her naivety might bring their doom. Kevin quickly looked back at Aemon. To his surprise, there wasn't the slightest hint of anger on Amon's face. "Technically, he's a demon, not a devil, but both could work, really," Aemon replied casually. Kevin's eyes widened as he processed Amon's words. Did he just say his father is a demon? Kevin shook his head. He knew it wasn't the time to theorize about what the Black Emperor truly was. They had to deal with his son first. "What do you want from us?" Kevin asked, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. Aemon looked at Kevin and grinned, a smile that made Kevin tremble for a moment. "I want nothing. I'm merely doing what my father asked me to do," Aemon said. Kevin frowned and asked, "What did the Black Emperor ask you to do?" Kevin didn't dare to speak his name carelessly. Unlike Amy, he wasn't someone who sought death. "Well, what else but to bring you to him?" Aemon replied. Kevin tried to speak but was cut off as Aemon continued. "Of course, if you'd rather stay here and become food for the abominations roaming this place, that's your choice." Kevin remained silent. As much as he hated the Black Emperor to his core, staying in the burned forest wasn't an option. The only way to survive was to go with Aemon. "We'll go with you," Kevin finally said. "Are you for real?" Amy shouted. Kevin looked at Amy. It wasn't just him who had lost a relative to the devil. Amy's brother had been a master of clan song. To her, her brother had been everything after their parents died. And the Black Emperor had taken her brother's life. Fortunately, before Amy could do something reckless, Rachel acted quickly, striking her on the neck and rendering her unconscious. Looking at Amy, Aemon shrugged and said, "Well, let's not waste any more time." Aemon walked toward the sea of black blood and coughed. Eve, open the portal. Unfortunately, there was no response. I know you can hear me, dear sister, Aemon said, his tone firm. Still, there was no response. Aemon sighed. He really hadn't wanted to resort to this. You know, if father finds out you're leaving these pitiful kids in this place, he'll be disappointed. Aemon didn't need to say another word. A portal opened in front of him. He chuckled and looked back at the four. What are you waiting for? Kevin looked at Aemon and gulped. He glanced at Ren and Rachel and nodded. The three of them walked past Aemon and entered the portal. At first, there was nothing but darkness. Then, the light of the sun hit Kevin's eyes. Looking ahead, Kevin's mouth dropped open in awe. The scenery before him was nothing short of breathtaking. A city filled with people, most of them young, like them. Their laughter echoed even from where he stood. Houses made of wood and concrete lined the streets. Green trees and grass were everywhere. The breeze carried the warmth of the sun, and the light hitting his face made him feel alive. Surrounding the city was a wall so massive that nothing beyond it could be seen. But what made Kevin hold his breath was the castle in the center of the city. Its walls were built from radiant white stone, with tall towers and majestic spires piercing the sky. It was truly a castle befitting an emperor. From his right, he heard Aemon clearing his throat. They all turned to him and were greeted with a smile. I welcome you to the bright city. The city beyond the mountains. Dash 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 dash. Aemon walked toward the castle, leaving the four kids to fend for themselves. After all, he wasn't their nanny. As he reached the castle, the soldiers opened the door for him. Though they weren't truly soldiers, they were all sleepers. They were more like servants than guards. Walking through the hallway, Aemon reached a large set of double doors. Unlike the castle's entrance, there was no one guarding these doors. He opened the doors and stepped inside. In the room, he saw a throne. Sitting on the throne was a man with black hair streaked with gold. His eyes were shut, as if in deep slumber. His face was godlike, beautiful yet undeniably handsome. Looking at his father, Aemon sighed. Since all of his father's children were part of him, having taken one of his soul cores, they could feel what was happening in their father's soul. The battle between Raphael and Nether had reached a point where Raphael could no longer remain awake, as Nether might seize the opportunity to attack more fiercely. When his father had resided in the Dark City, he had split himself into 6 parts, which he called his children. These 6 parts weren't independent entities. No. Using his supreme ability, Transcendence Transformation, and Nether's knowledge of creating life, Raphael had brought life to these 6 parts. Of course, these parts were still connected to Raphael. They could think and live like any human, but they remained part of him. Each part symbolized an aspect of Raphael. The first, Adam, the child of fate, symbolized his father's authority over fate. The second, Medici, the child of war, symbolized his father's strength and his origins as a human born in the war realm. The third, Agonizes, the child of darkness, symbolized the dark side of her father. The fourth, Rebirth, the child of destiny, symbolized his father's omniscience and knowledge. The fifth, Eve, the child of imagination, symbolized the dreams and past of her father. The last, Aemon, the child of time, symbolized his father's transcendence over the law of time. As Aemon looked at his father, he heard footsteps behind him. Turning around, he saw a man with golden hair and a beard, wearing a simple white cloak. "You're back," the man said. Aemon nodded. After a few moments of silence, he asked, "I can't sense Medici anywhere." "Do you know why, Adam?" "Father has sent him," Adam replied. Amon's eyes widened. For his father to send that lunatic, something important must have happened while he was away. Adam looked at his younger brother and spoke, "Father has begun. The preparations for the day of redemption have started. dash 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 dash. I nailed the quiz, so I decided I will drop a chapter even though I've a midterm exam after tomorrow. I might be fucked up. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Hand waving. Sunny looked at the Dark City, or what it was called before. After losing his fate, he was lost, roaming the lands. For half a year, he stayed with Rain, watching over her. But after some time, he understood something. He didn't belong to this world. He remembered a quote that Raphael had told him before: a person lives on in the memories of those who remember them. Only when they are forgotten do they truly die. At first, he didn't understand it, but now he did. Leaving Happy Shadow with Rain, he ventured into the Hollow Mountains. After a year and a half, he found himself at the Forgotten Shore once again. It really was quite funny. He had sworn never to return, yet here he was. Finding himself at the Forgotten Shore, he journeyed through it, heading toward the first place he had called home. Imagine his surprise when he saw that the once ruined city was now populated with people, and a sun in the sky. A sun. For there to be a sun in this dead land must have been a miracle from a god or something. As curious as he was, he entered the Bright City, or so its residents called it. After some time gathering information, he learned what had happened to the Dark City. After the third nightmare, Raphael, who had become supreme, somehow took residence in the Dark City. With his 6 children, he rebuilt it anew and turned it into a refuge for the people summoned beyond the Hollow Mountains. How can a man father 6 children? Sunny thought, shrugging. He sighed. He still had a lot of questions for his friend, if Raphael even remembered him. Sunny hoped that Raphael would remember him. How could he not, when that man had broken every logic in the world? He had somehow become a sovereign without even becoming a saint. Not to mention, before Sunny entered the estuary, he was sure Raphael had been corrupted, yet now, he wasn't. Walking through the city, Sunny reached what he had once called home. In front of him stood a white cathedral glowing under stained glass light, its marble floor reflecting soft hues. Worshippers sat in wooden pews, deep in prayer. At the altar, a towering statue stood with a radiant sun carved behind it, its golden details catching the light. The figure held a banner in one hand and raised the other, as if in blessing or command, watching over all with serene authority. Finding a place to sit, Sunny remained there for a few moments. After the worshippers finished their prayers, they left the cathedral, continuing their normal routines. Only one person remained, kneeling in front of the statue. He was a man with golden hair and a beard, wearing a simple white cloak. From what Sunny knew, the man was the first child of Raphael, Adam. Sighing, Sunny stood up, intending to leave, but he was stopped as he heard Adam speak to him. "Would you consider waiting a few minutes, Shadow?" Sunny remained silent for a moment, then sat down again. After a few minutes, Adam stood up and walked towards Sunny, saying, "What is the honor of a divine shadow visiting this humble place?" "There is no honor in my coming here." Adam smiled at Sunny and replied, "There is. After all, my father has been waiting for you." Sunny's eyes widened. He looked at Adam and stuttered. Do you know who I am?" "If you mean whether I know you closely, then I don't," Adam replied. Sunny's head dropped as he looked at the ground. Adam looked at him and remained silent. Sighing, Sunny raised his head and asked, "You said your father wants to meet me. Why?" "Only Father himself knows." Looking at the black-haired man in front of him, Adam added, "We shouldn't keep my father waiting any longer." Walking through the city, the duo reached the castle. The soldiers opened the doors for them, and they walked through the hallways until they reached the throne room. Looking at the man sitting on the throne, Sunny was sure it was Raphael, even though his appearance had changed completely. But what caught Sunny's attention was the woman sitting on Raphael's lap, her head resting on his chest. The woman had black hair like the night sky, and she wore a layered black classical dress that was elegant yet not overly complex, complementing her slender figure. Her sleepy face was the most beautiful he had ever seen. Agonies, we have a guest. The woman named Agonies opened her bright red eyes and looked at Sunny. For some reason, Sunny began trembling in fear. After a few seconds of intense staring, she closed her eyes again and rested her head back on her father's chest as if he were a pillow. Adam sighed and walked to the middle of the room. I've brought him, father. At first, there was no response. But then, Raphael slowly opened his golden eyes. He looked at Adam for a moment, then at Agonies, who was sleeping on his lap. Patting her head, he turned to Sunny and said, "Who would have thought that a divine shadow still exists, even after the death of the shadow god?" Sunny wanted to speak, but suddenly Raphael began laughing. Ha ha ha, what are you, really? Sunny frowned and asked, "What do you mean? Don't play with me, child. Not only are you a divine shadow, but you also have no fate. For a being to have no fate means they simply don't exist." Sunny tried to answer but remained silent. Raphael looked at Sunny and sighed. "It doesn't matter. I brought you here to offer you something." He paused for a moment, then continued, "Become my shadow, and I shall fulfill any wish you desire." Sunny looked at him and chuckled, "Can you create fate?" Raphael looked at him and replied, "I can't. That's all the answer I need. It was nice meeting you." As Sunny was about to leave, he heard Raphael's voice. "I can't right now, but in the future, I will." Sunny looked back at Raphael and asked, "How?" "As someone with Weaver's lineage, I have authority over fate. When I grow stronger, I should be able to do that." Sunny's eyes widened. He was sure Raphael had Nether's lineage, not Weaver's. "What do you mean you have Weaver's lineage?" Raphael chuckled and said, "Unlike you, divine shadow, I was born from his blood. A true son of a demon." Sunny was speechless. With that one sentence, Raphael had revealed so much, but what scared him most was the possibility that Weaver might still be alive. "Don't you have Nether's lineage?" I don't know where you heard that, but you're right. I do have his lineage." Looking at Raphael, Sunny asked, "Then how do you have both? One of them should have consumed the other." Sunny spoke from his experience with the shadow god's lineage. "You're not wrong. The two lineages are fighting each other. Unfortunately, unlike yours, my lineage isn't pure, it's not of a true demon's blood, as I was born from a human mother." Sunny finally understood. He knew Nether was trying to take control of Raphael's body. When Raphael mentioned having Weaver's lineage, Sunny had been confused as to why it hadn't consumed Nether's. Now he knew, because Raphael's lineage wasn't pure, it was weaker than Nether's. Raphael looked at Sunny and asked, "Will you accept?" Sunny looked at him and smiled. "Fortunately, I don't intend to become anyone's slave, nor can you become my master." Raphael remained silent, then asked, "Can I ask why I can't become your master?" "No," Sunny replied. He looked at the two and said, "It was nice meeting you, unfortunately, I have a debt I must repay. Goodbye." With that, Sunny turned into a shadow and left the castle. Looking at where Sunny had been, Raphael sighed and muttered, "This brings back bad memories." Adam looked at his father and asked, "Is it okay not to tell him, father?" Raphael looked at his son and smiled. "He's too weak right now. Only when he's ready to hear the truth will I tell him." Patting his daughter's head, he added, "I need to go back. Nether has taken advantage of my absence." "Yes, father," Adam replied. With that, Raphael closed his eyes, returning to his soul sea, where everything was in chaos. Dash 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 dash. I no diffed my mid-exam, it wasn't even a challenge. So for the next 2 days I'll be uploading 1 chapter each. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the Fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic, chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Hand waving. In the middle of an ocean, a sailing ship was moving toward an unknown destination. At the top of the ship stood a man dressed in black armor, a red cape draped over his shoulders that seemed to be splashed with blood. He had long, fiery red hair and a youthful, handsome appearance. The red-haired man was humming to himself, enjoying this moment of his life, even though he had been sailing the seas for over a month. How could he not be happy? His father had finally sent him away from that boring city. As the child of war, Medici always craved battle. He had once asked his father for a fight, only for Adam to kick him out of the castle. He still remembered his brother's angry face, which he found quite amusing. Gazing at the endless ocean before him, Medici sighed. It had been more than a month since he entered the tomb of Ariel, as his father had ordered. He had been given 2 tasks. First, to search for any survivors in the tomb of Ariel, and second, to retrieve a thing for his father. When he entered the tomb, he found himself in the distant future. At that time, he had wanted to enter the estuary, but he couldn't. He needed to complete his father's task and find the guiding light first to locate the estuary. So, he ventured across the endless sea, searching for anything alive, even abominations, since he was desperate to kill something. Looking ahead, he spotted the silhouette of an island. This should be Weave. Medici continued sailing toward Weave until he finally reached it. Unlike what his father had seen in the third nightmare, this version of Weave was far more destroyed. The islands that were once connected to the center were gone. Jumping from the deck, he landed on Weave. After looking around for a minute, Medici sighed. There wasn't a single human left on Weave, only abominations. Summoning a great sword made of blood-red fire, he searched for any abominations, killing them all in the process. Finding nothing of value, Medici returned to his ship and continued sailing toward the past. 2 months had passed since he left Weave. While heading to the past, Medici found the lost islands of Weave and slaughtered every abomination there. After 2 months, he finally reached Fallen Grace. Like Weave, it was destroyed and controlled by the senior Sibyl. As for Dusk, she had already been killed by Sunny during the siege of Falcon Scott. Leaving the burned ruins of Fallen Grace behind, he returned to his ship and set sail for the Lost Temple. It didn't take him long to reach it. Entering the Lost Temple, he fought against the defiled Sibyl and its army, slaughtering them just as he had done with the others before. Passing through the murals, Medici entered the secret room where the guiding light was kept. Walking toward the altar in the center of the room, he picked up the guiding light and examined the soul shard atop the staff. Lost from light, he spoke. At first, there was no response. But then, the soul shard surged with light, pointing toward someone or something. Medici grinned madly as he looked at the staff. How could he not? The thing he had come to capture was still there in the estuary. Just the thought of fighting the vile thieving bird filled him with ecstasy. Medici took a deep breath. He wanted nothing more than to rush into battle, but he still needed to complete his father's task. He looked at the guiding light and spoke again, Windflower. Once more, the soul shard surged with light, pointing in a specific direction. Satisfied, Medici left the temple and returned to his ship to continue sailing. This time, his destination was Windflower, the daughter of King Darren. Medici sighed as he looked at the vortex ahead. Unlike the chain breaker, his ship would not survive passing through it. Summoning his crimson wings, he flew into the vortex, ascending toward the island. The turbulent air around him struck with force, but it was nothing for a supreme like him. After a few minutes, he emerged from the tornado and landed on the island. Even after thousands of years, the island remained the same. He glanced at the tower in the center and flew toward it. Many great abominations stood in his way, but they were swiftly cut down by his crimson sword. Entering the tower, he climbed the stairs until he reached the room where Windflower lay sleeping. He opened the door and stepped inside. There she was, a rare beauty with smooth, dewy dark skin free of blemishes. Her exquisite face was soft and lovely, and her wavy hair glistened like black silk. She wore an archaic robe of rich azure with vivid white accents. As she slept, Her vulnerable, innocent expression was captivating. Medici raised his crimson sword and stabbed it through her stomach. However, the sword did not harm her physically, instead, it reached her soul. The seed of corruption within her was suddenly engulfed by crimson fire. Every child of Raphael possessed a unique aspect. Amon's was related to time, Adam's to fate. Medici's aspect, however, was a combination of his father's, the Nephilims, and the Valor clans, granting him control over fire and iron, as well as complete mastery of his body. His ascended aspect ability allowed him to cleanse corruption completely from anyone, including himself. The crimson fire burned away the corruption. It tried to fight back, but its enemy was the will of a supreme. The fire consumed everything, leaving nothing behind. Windflower was the first to notice. She felt it, the corruption was gone. She awoke from her dream, opening her eyes to see the red-haired man standing before her. She was speechless. After an unknown amount of time trapped in corruption, she was finally free. Who are you? She stammered. Medici looked at her and replied, the great child of war, Medici, son of Raphael. Windflower was overwhelmed with shock and disbelief. Did you come from outside the tomb? Correct. I was sent by my father to search for survivors in the tomb. Windflower remained silent. Medici didn't wait for her to respond and continued, Lady Windflower, if you come with me, I'll ensure you escape the tomb. Windflower clutched her clothes tightly. Can you really get me out? I can, Medici replied. Tears streamed down Windflower's cheeks as she finally allowed herself to cry. The sound of her sobbing echoed through the tower. After so long, she had found hope. After some time, Windflower composed herself and spoke to Medici, I'm sorry. Medici shook his head. It's okay. I understand. He stood up and said, we need to leave the island before the time loop restarts. He walked over to Windflower, lifted her into his arms, and flew out of the tower. Looking down, he raised his finger toward the sky, and a massive crimson sun of fire materialized. With a flick of his finger, the sun descended onto the island, obliterating it completely and breaking the time loop. Medici flew into the darkness beneath the island, entering the whirlpool and reaching its heart. As they reached the end of the tunnel, both were ejected from the vortex at tremendous speed. Holding Windflower, Medici looked at the great river but felt no interest in it. Windflower shared his indifference. We'll go to Twilight, he declared. Windflower nodded silently, following his lead. After some time, the two landed on the walls of Twilight. Looking down, Medici sighed. The sight of human bones scattered everywhere was disheartening. We're leaving, he said. Windflower remained silent, only nodding in agreement. The two continued flying toward their next destination before the estuary, Verge, the land of the Seekers. Are you sure about this? Windflower asked. Medici glanced down at her. You don't need to worry. You've seen what I'm capable of. Windflower sighed as they descended onto Verge. Medici looked at Windflower and retrieved a memory, a tool created by his brother Adam. This memory had a single enchantment. It could store anything, including living beings. Windflower touched the memory and vanished inside it. Medici stored the memory back in his soul sea and turned to face the army of abominations charging toward him. Above him, thousands of crimson flames transformed into spears. In mere seconds, the spears rained down like crimson fire, killing hundreds of abominations. Those that survived were consumed by the flames. Medici summoned his weapons. As the great child of war, how could he not join the fight himself? With a mad laugh, he charged into the horde, slashing left and right. The sky rained blood as he bathed in the carnage. Ahead, he spotted a massive abomination, a cursed devil. The sight made his blood boil with excitement. He strode toward the cursed devil, their wills and authorities clashing. But the cursed devil's will and authority were no match for the son of a demon in a vessel. Medici slashed through the abomination, severing space itself and cutting the cursed devil in two. With their leader dead, the abominations fell into chaos. Medici continued his slaughter until he reached the Citadel of Truth, where the first seeker, Aledia of the Nine, awaited. Inside, he found a sprawling mass of festering flesh oozing black liquid. Without hesitation, Medici thrust his crimson sword into the mass. The fire consumed everything, from its main body to its tendrils. Exiting the citadel, he watched as Verge burned and sank into the great river. Summoning his crimson wings, he flew away, leaving the destruction behind. Only one task remained, the estuary. I've finished my midterms and am finally free for a month and a half. During this time, I'll complete the fanfic, as only the final volume remains. Trust me, I'm cooking up something even better than the plot twists in Volume 4. Also, I know I promised to upload a chapter last Friday and Saturday, but I was both lazy and busy studying for the midterms I just finished. Please forgive me. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the Fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic, chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Hand waving. On the deck, Medici raised the guiding light. A gray mist surrounded him, blocking even the light from the 7 suns in the sky. Behind him stood Windflower, controlling the wheel with skill far superior to his. As the daughter of King Darren and a child of the storm, her expertise was unmatched, surpassing even the House of Night Saints. After some time, Medici spotted the silhouette of an island in the distance. He ordered Windflower to slow down to avoid crashing into the estuary. Once the ship was anchored, Medici walked toward the cave where the demon of oblivion was buried. Reaching the top, he saw an inverted cross made of silver, inscribed with the words, "Here you shall be imprisoned. Here you shall find the truth. Here you shall be born again. Hail Weaver, the demon of fate. Hail the hanged man, seeker of salvation." It was ironic. Thanks to the inverted cross, Medici and his siblings were born. Yet, he still remembered how broken his father had been for thousands of years. Shaking his head, he walked past the cross. Windflower, standing behind him, focused on the last line of the inscription. Though Weaver's name was mentioned, her attention was drawn to the one the message referred to. She looked at Medici's back and asked, "Who is the hanged man?" Medici stopped and turned to face her. After a moment of silence, he replied, "My father." Windflower's eyes widened in shock. She had assumed the hanged man was a god, a demon, or perhaps a divine titan. To learn he was merely a supreme left her stunned. Medici continued walking, finally reaching the tunnel. He glanced back at Windflower and extended his hand. She sighed and entered the memory he held. Medici entered the tunnel, passing through the source of defilement and the stone maze until he reached the inner sanctum of the hidden lake, where the guardian stood watch. He felt eyes on him but refused to back down. Instead, he met the guardian's gaze. After a few seconds, the feeling vanished. Medici chuckled and continued toward the vague shape rising from the water in the distance. Entering the heart of the estuary, he found himself in a vast cavern hidden deep within a towering mountain. Darkness filled the space, save for a single ray of bright light illuminating a small island rising from the glossy black water. A beautiful tree grew on the island, its leaves a sea of pale magenta. As the branches swayed gently in the wind, the leaves fell onto the water's surface, creating ripples. In the shadow of the tree stood a simple stone sarcophagus, its lid covered in withered leaves. Medici approached the grave of the demon of oblivion. He raised a hand and brushed away the fallen leaves. With a smile, he spoke, "Should I call you Aunt?" There was no response, but Medici didn't mind. He stood there for a few minutes before looking up at the tree branches. To his surprise, he found nothing. Then he noticed the tree itself had split open, forming a doorway made of wood. Runes covered the doorway. Medici's smile faded. From the darkness, he sensed movement. He remained still, waiting. Then it happened. Something attacked him from behind, aiming for his exposed back. But Medici reacted swiftly. He spun 180 degrees, raising his right hand to catch the attacker while summoning a shield of crimson fire with his left. Before him stood a giant creature with a hunched back, a disheveled mantle of black feathers, a terrifying beak, and mighty wings. Medici grinned as he parried its claws with his shield and caught its beak with his other hand. "Let's not disturb the dead, don't you think?" he said. With his left hand, Medici summoned a memory and threw it near the gateway. Putting all his strength into his legs, he dashed out of the island, back to the inner sanctum of the hidden lake where the guardian stood. The vile thieving bird broke free from Medici's grip and flew away, its eyes filled with greed and madness. Suddenly, the guardian attacked from behind, but the bird dodged at the last second. Facing both Medici and the guardian, the vile thieving bird quickly devised a plan. Using its wings, it launched a barrage of feather-like bullets at Medici. While Medici was distracted, the vile thieving bird escaped. Gritting his teeth, Medici gave chase. His plan to use the guardian had failed miserably. Even in its corrupted state, the vile thieving bird was as cunning as ever. Exiting the tunnel, Medici scanned the area for the creature. It didn't take long to sense it, but a second was all it needed. The vile thieving bird lunged at Medici, its claws piercing his chest and reaching his soul. It attacked his soul core, stealing something before retreating. Medici glared at the creature, his teeth clenched. His awakened ability, geokinesis, had been stolen, a part of his soul was gone. In the sky, the vile thieving bird screeched. The earth trembled and broke apart as stones and iron rose into the air, reshaping into needle-like projectiles. Medici didn't wait for the attack. He began creating spears of crimson flame. The two unleashed their wrath upon each other, turning the sky into a battlefield of fire and earth. Explosions echoed everywhere. Despite the devastation above, the true battle was one of wills and authority. Medici was losing. Even with all his power, he was being overpowered. If only my father were here, he would have won. Shaking his head, he focused entirely on the vile thieving bird. The struggle continued for 3 minutes until Medici felt the earth tremble beneath him. He looked up and spotted a small opening, just enough for him to act. He leapt into the sky, dodging a spear of earth that surged from below. Moving at a speed far surpassing sound, Medici reached the vile thieving bird. With his right hand engulfed in crimson flame, he punched its beak. The sound of cracking echoed. The bird crashed to the ground. Medici didn't give it a chance to recover. Summoning a crimson sword, he descended upon it. The vile thieving bird launched feathers at Medici, but he dodged to the right, closing the distance. Suddenly, the bird vanished. From behind, the cursed terror reappeared, attacking Medici's back. Gritting his teeth, Medici shielded his soul, but this time, the creature targeted his body, shattering his armor and hurling him into the mountain. Cough. Medici cursed inwardly as he looked up to see thousands of massive needles descending toward him. He summoned a crimson shield to protect himself. His back, where every bone, muscle, and piece of flesh had been destroyed, began to heal. It stole the distance, he realized. The vile thieving bird had stolen the distance between itself and Medici's back, allowing it to teleport behind him. Medici rose to his feet, his body beginning to change. He grew to 8 meters tall, his form transforming into an iron-black metal skeleton engulfed in majestic crimson flames. His transcended transformation ability, Calamity Giant, had been activated. The heat from the flames melted his surroundings, including the spears in the sky. Medici looked at the vile thieving bird and created a 10-meter-long crimson spear made of fire. But he didn't stop at one. He continued until 50 crimson spears hovered in the sky, awaiting his command. With a thought, he launched them all at the vile thieving bird. The bird dodged the first spear easily, but it exploded, creating more spears that attacked from all angles. Caught off guard, the bird was struck by several spears, the crimson flames burning its body. The vile thieving bird screamed in agony as it teleported away from the flames. But it couldn't rest. The remaining spears pursued it relentlessly. The bird dodged and destroyed as many as it could, but eventually, the last spear was gone. The cursed terror looked toward Medici and saw its doom. A giant creature made of iron-black metal, engulfed in majestic crimson flames, stood before it. In its hand was a crimson sword so massive it seemed to reach the heavens. The vile thieving bird tried to flee, but no matter where it went, the sword loomed over it. The great river evaporated under the sword's heat. The war child is the Lord's rage, the Lord's punishment. His appearance heralds destruction. The crimson sword descended, unstoppable and unbreakable. The vile thieving bird screamed, using most of its essence to teleport out of the sword's path. But it was too late. The left side of its body was severed, black blood gushing out. Crimson flames erupted, burning its feathers and skin. The bird screeched in agony as its soul and body were consumed by the flames. The crimson sword had cut through space itself. By stealing the distance, the vile thieving bird had made itself an easier target. Medici returned to his normal form, his soul essence completely depleted. Unlike his father, he had only one soul core. He walked toward the vile thieving bird, surprised to find it still standing. He laughed and said, "You're really stubborn, aren't you? Unfortunately, you've already lost." As Medici spoke, 5 portals appeared out of nowhere. On the island where oblivion was buried, Windflower stood near the gateway, pouring her essence into the runes. Before entering the tunnel, Medici had asked her to bind with the tomb of Ariel. She had already taken too much time. Finally, the runes radiated light, completing the bond. Suddenly, the gateway's runes glowed brighter, and a man with golden hair and a beard, wearing a simple white cloak, emerged. Windflower stared at him in shock. Adam glanced around before noticing her. He smiled and said, "You must be Windflower, right?" She nodded. "Thanks to you, we were able to reach this place." "What do you mean?" she asked. Adam touched the gateway and explained, "You must have accepted becoming a saint within my brother's domain." He looked at her and continued, "So, when you bound yourself to the gateway, you made the entire tomb part of my brother's domain. What you didn't know is that Medici is me, and I am my father. In essence, we are all one being separated into 7. So, when you made the tomb part of his domain, it also became part of mine." Windflower wanted to ask more, but a portal appeared in front of Adam. He looked at her and said, "I know you have many questions, but I don't have time to answer them." With that, Adam stepped through the portal and vanished. From each portal, a figure emerged: Adam, Aemon, Agonies, and 2 others. The first was a man with gray hair and eyes, pale skin, and a white and gray cloak. In his left hand, he held a book with a silver cover and infinite pages. The other was a woman with black hair, brown eyes, and light tan skin, wearing a business suit that set her apart from her siblings. They all turned their attention to the vile thieving bird. "Man, I could go for some fried chicken," Aemon remarked. Eve looked at him and asked, "Does that even exist now?" "I don't know, but father liked it a lot back then." Adam, ignoring the banter, looked at Medici and said, "You've done well, little brother." "I don't need praise," Medici replied with a sigh. "Let's finish this." The others nodded. The vile thieving bird tried to flee, but it was too late. Fate, fire, destiny, time, darkness, and imagination, all types of attacks were unleashed upon it. Yet, none of them killed it. They made sure of that. Every bone, muscle, and organ was either destroyed or damaged. Adam approached the creature, plunging his fist into its soul and retrieving a red string. He walked back to Medici and returned his stolen ability. "Don't lose it again." "Tisk," Medici muttered. Using his restored ability, Geokinesis, he summoned the inverted cross to his side. Agonies wasted no time, using her darkness to nail the vile thieving bird to the cross, sealing its power completely. The loathsome thieving bird, hated by both gods and the Forgotten, had fallen to the child of war and his siblings. 2 days. 2 fucking days. I've been writing, thinking about VTB abilities and how the fight will go and end for 2 days. This chapter was supposed to be uploaded yesterday, but I didn't even start as I had no idea about VTB abilities. Sigh. I hope you liked the chapter at least. Also, do you think the end of the battle was realistic or plot armor? And write some fucking comments, okay? If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the Fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time, hand waving. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. Eamon walked through the halls of the castle. Just moments ago, Eve had told him that their father had asked them to gather. Reaching the throne room, Eamon opened the door, his eyes widening in surprise. Usually, his father would be sitting on his throne, asleep, with the room empty except for Adam. But now, in the middle of the room, stood a dining table with 3 seats on the right and 3 on the left. At the head of the table sat his father. "What's happening?" Eamon asked. Adam looked at his younger brother and said, "You're late." Eamon frowned, glancing at his father, who was smiling at him. "Come, son, sit. We've been waiting for you." Sighing, Eamon took the empty seat and said, "You could have started without me, you know." Raphael shook his head and replied, "No, a family always eats together." Eamon didn't respond. He remained silent, his gaze fixed on the food on the table. Raphael smiled and began eating, the others following suit. They chatted with each other like any family would. Raphael watched with a smile as he picked up a fork and knife to cut the chicken. It was difficult. His body was barely responding, but he didn't show it. With all his will, he brought the fork near the chicken, but he failed. The fork slipped from his hand, hitting the floor with a loud clatter that echoed through the room. Raphael looked at his children, scratching his head and laughing awkwardly. He bent down to retrieve the fork but stopped when he heard Amon's voice. "Father, it's okay." Raphael picked up the fork, stood up, and looked at Eamon with a smile. "What do you mean, son?" This time, it was Rzxs who spoke. "Father, we are part of you. We feel your emotions." Raphael fell silent. After a moment, he spoke again, "I'm sorry." Adam shook his head and said, "Don't be, father. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't be alive. We're grateful to you." The others nodded in agreement. "It was because of my selfish reasons that you were born," Raphael admitted. "We know, but we still love you," Eve replied with a warm smile. Raphael placed his hand over his face and sighed. "I don't have much time. Nether will take over soon." They all nodded, having expected this. "I can't let Nether return and roam the world. That's why I need to go to the underworld." They all frowned, except for Adam. Why wouldn't they? Their father had always wanted to escape the underworld the moment he found himself there. "But my power isn't enough." Eamon chuckled and said, "You should have said that from the beginning." "I'm sorry," Raphael replied. Suddenly, Medici stood up and slammed the table, breaking it completely. "Can you stop with that loser attitude?" Agonies glared at Medici, her voice sharp. "Medici, sit down." Medici turned to her and snapped, "Shut it, Agonies." He then looked at his father and said, "Stop acting like you're going to die and everything will end. You've always made plans and backup plans for everything. I'm sure you have a plan, right, father?" Raphael looked at his son, his eyes wide. There was a moment of silence before Raphael burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha, you're right. That was pathetic of me." "You're right, Medici. I do have a plan." He looked at his children, his face filled with confidence. "For me to create a portal to the underworld, I need to be at least a terror." He took a deep breath and continued, "One of you will stay with Sunless to guide him. In the end, he's the only one who can kill Nether." There was no argument about who would stay. It was Adam, the one who had always been by their father's side. "What about the kids living in the city?" Eve asked. "Right." With a snap of his fingers, all the citizens of Bright City vanished. Some found themselves in Bastion, others in Ravenheart, the Chained Isles, and other places. Raphael stood up and spoke solemnly, "We don't have time to waste." Medici was the first to stand and walk toward Raphael. He looked his father in the eyes and grinned. His father's eyes truly lived up to his titles. The devil, the man feared by all, the seeker of salvation, the Black Emperor. Laughing, Medici began to fade, becoming illusionary as he entered Raphael's body. Agonies was next. She hugged her father before dissolving into an illusion and merging with him. Eve followed, the daughter who resembled him the most. Rzxs closed his book and entered Raphael's body without a word. He was sure they would meet again. Eamon looked at his father and adjusted his monocle. Sigh, I should have run away when I had the chance. Raphael chuckled. Come on, you problematic child. Eamon shrugged and entered Raphael's body as well. Raphael sighed. He still remembered the first time they were created. It wasn't when he became a supreme, but long before. In the third nightmare, Raphael had lived for so many years that he began to forget the faces of his family. It broke him. Over time, he forgot them all. He became obsessed with the idea of family, and created his own from his imagination. As time passed, the only thing that kept him sane was his little children. Raphael grew more obsessed, wanting to make his family real. After hundreds of thousands of years, he created the visionary law. But that wasn't enough. He wanted to bring life to them, so he studied the forbidden knowledge of Nether. After millions of experiments, he succeeded. But there were consequences. He had ventured too deep into Nether's memories, allowing Nether to take control of his body more and more. His selfish desires might have doomed humanity. I should be the one who's grateful. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be the man I am. He looked at Adam and said, I've put a huge burden on you, but I know you'll do well because I'm your son, Adam replied with a smile. Yes, because you're my son. Adam knelt before his father and said, let's all meet again, on the day of redemption. Raphael remained silent as his body began to vanish. He looked at Adam and muttered under his breath, the day of redemption. Seeing his father gone, Adam stood and walked toward the castle's exit. The sun, which had always hung in the sky, was gone, replaced by a gray expanse. The once noisy city was now silent. Adam walked to the cathedral, opened its doors, and approached the statue. He knelt and began to pray. After some time, he, too, began to vanish. The dark city returned to its normal state, shrouded in darkness. On the moon, a gaunt man sat in the dust, clad in a tattered spacesuit. The visor of his helmet was cracked, and the oxygen in the tank attached to his back had long since run out. Astarion raised an eyebrow and turned his gaze toward a particular direction. In front of him stood a man with golden hair and a beard, dressed in a simple white cloak. Adam looked at Astarion and spoke solemnly. Astarion, let's make a deal. Behind the cracked visor, the man grinned madly, as if the words Adam spoke were a symphony to his ears. End of. Nah, just kidding. Next chapter will be the end of the volume and the start of the last. It might be the greatest one I write or the worst, it depends on how well written it would be. By the way, we reached 100k words, party popper. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the Fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic, chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Hand waving. Sunny walked, his body stiff from the cold. It had been nearly a year since he last met Raphael. Feeling depressed, as his last hope for someone to remember him faded, he continued his journey toward the burned forest. Fortunately, he was able to circle around it, reaching the other side. By then, the sun did not rise at night anymore. The sky wasn't entirely black, though. It was illuminated by countless stars, and although the moon did not show itself, he could sometimes see a ghostly radiance, as if it were hidden just out of sight. The ground was slowly devoured by ice. Sunny continued to move north, and at some point, he could no longer see the ground at the bottom of the deep cracks in the ice. Instead, there was only water. Suddenly, something appeared in the distance. A shape that was different from all the rest, too orderly and smooth to be anything but artificial. Barely containing his fascination, Sunny walked in that direction. He moved closer and closer until the strange structure finally revealed itself. Sunny stumbled. His weathered face suddenly froze. All traces of excitement were erased from it, replaced by a deep, powerful emotion that wasn't quite horror and wasn't quite shock, but very close to both. He swayed slightly. Ah! A slow exhale escaped from his lips. Sunny sank to his knees. Tears rolled from his eyes, turning into drops of ice. Here, it's here. It was. A bitter smile split his pale face. Out there in front of him, hidden in the ice, stood a small settlement. It was surrounded by a thick wall, now broken and covered in snow. There was a large dome-like structure towering above the settlement, painted white against the backdrop of the starlit sky. It resembled a giant, perfectly smooth egg. It was an observatory, a lunar observatory. It was Low 49. Sunny's eyes filled with despair and sadness. He had believed they had time, but he was wrong. Time wasn't on their side. Suddenly, from behind, Sunny heard footsteps. He turned quickly, summoning a shadow katana. Behind him was a man with golden hair and a beard, wearing a simple white cloak. Sunny knew him. He looked at Adam in confusion. Adam glanced at LO49 and spoke. I still remember the time when we stayed there. Sunny's eyes widened, his breath caught in his throat. Adam looked at Sunny and smiled. It's good to see you again, Sunny. In the underworld, where the Grand Throne Room was located, a portal emerged into existence. From it stepped a man with black hair streaked with gold. His golden eyes brimmed with confidence. His face was godlike, beautiful yet undeniably handsome. Raphael looked around at thousands of creatures, all wounded. He chuckled. In the end, he was the one who had orchestrated the attack on the underworld during their weakest moment. Raphael walked toward the throne. In front of it stood Moj, looking at him with hatred. He reached the throne, but Moj stood in front of him, blocking his path. Raphael looked into his eyes and spoke solemnly, "Move." Moj gritted his teeth and moved aside, just as Raphael ordered. Raphael looked at the throne and sat on it, gazing at the crowd below him. He closed his eyes and opened them again. This time, he saw two different points of view. One of himself in the underworld, and the other looking at Sunny. Sunny trembled, his mind racing with thoughts. No. No way. How? What do you mean, how, Sunny? Raphael replied. Sunny gritted his teeth and yelled, how do you remember me? Raphael chuckled and spoke, I've always remembered you, Sunny. From the time we met at the police station to the end of the third nightmare. Sunny remained silent for a moment, then asked, stuttering, why now? Why tell me now? Raphael didn't reply and remained silent. Looking at Sunny, Raphael sighed. Do you think you are the only one who suffered, Sunny? Sunny looked up at Raphael, his face filled with confusion. What? Do you know how much of my sanity I lost while living for thousands of years, watching you become corrupted every time? I've asked, prayed, and yelled for someone to end my torture and let me rest. But no one responded. Raphael looked at the night sky, brimming with stars. What about Cassie? Do you know how much she was hurt when she realized it wasn't her who would achieve the goal she dreamt of, an escape with her friends? That another would do it while she would only be a stepping stone. He looked at Sunny again and spoke. What about Nefis, who watched the one she loved stab her in the heart and corrupt her friends? We've all been hurt by you, Sunny, but no one hated you. No one resented you, because in the end, we all have dreams. And what is the difference between you and us? Sunny remained silent, lacking the courage to speak back. Sunny, my friend, no, my little brother. I've lost. Nether will take my body and kill everyone, that's why I need you. I need your help. Sunny's eyes widened in disbelief. What? No, what do you mean Nether will take your body? Sunny, you knew it was a matter of time. It's a miracle it didn't happen until now. Sunny gritted his teeth and asked, why me? Why is it always me who has to do everything? Raphael smiled and spoke, because you are fated. Fated to fight for the good of humanity. As for why I need your help. His smile changed to one of sadness. Because you are the heir of death, and the only man who can kill me. Sunny stood up and yelled, why? Why would I need to kill you from the start? Shouldn't killing Nether be enough? And why do you think I can kill a demon? Raphael shook his head and spoke. That isn't possible. Nether and I have merged to the point where I am Nether, and he is me. Unless I die, Nether will always live. As for why I think you can kill Nether, it's because I believe you can. Ha ha ha, you think I can kill a demon because you believe I can. Sunny laughed. Raphael remained silent. He took a deep breath and asked, do you know what my true name is? The Black Emperor. Sunny replied. Raphael nodded and spoke. In the runic language, black could mean many things: darkness, death, void, chaos, evil, and sacrifice. I always thought my true name translated to the Emperor of Darkness, but now I know what it actually is. The Sacrificial Emperor. That is my true name. Sunny gritted his teeth and yelled, "Why? Why do you accept such a fate? What do you want me to do? Defy fate and let everyone die? I can't. I can't do such things. That's why I accepted my fate, unlike you." Sunny stumbled down and spoke, stuttering, You are a fool." Raphael smiled, an exaggerated smile, a ridiculous smile. Nonetheless, it was a smile. "Yes, I'm a fool. A fool who loves the world." Sunny looked at Raphael. Suddenly, he felt something on his cheeks. He tried to wipe it away, but more came. He finally understood what it was, tears surging from his eyes. After everything he had gone through, after finally finding someone who remembered him, only to discover that the only one who remembered him was fated to die. Sunny couldn't take it anymore. Tears streamed from his eyes. He cursed the world, the gods, and everything that came to mind. And Raphael listened. Wasn't it his duty as an older brother to listen to his younger brother? Raphael felt sleepy, like the time when he was first infected with the nightmare spell. And he didn't fight against it. He closed his eyes, entering a slumber from which he didn't know if he would ever wake again. After some time, Sunny looked at Raphael and asked, "Raphael, I'm sorry, Lord Sunless, but my father is gone." It was Adam who responded. Sunny looked down at the ground. He remained silent for a moment, then stood up. "Let's go." Adam nodded and followed him. In the underworld, Moj looked at Raphael. It had been more than an hour since he closed his eyes. Suddenly, a terrifying pressure descended on him. Without even thinking, he kneeled, pressing his head to the floor. How could he not? He felt the presence of his lord again. On the throne, Raphael opened his eyes. Once golden, they were now black as the void, devoid of any emotion. Moj looked up and spoke, "My lord, we have been waiting for you." Nether looked around, seeing thousands of people kneeling before him. He glanced at Moj and asked, "Who are you?" "It's me, your majesty, Moj, your right-hand man. You assigned me to protect your lineage." Nether looked at Moj. In his eyes, there was a hint of disgust, nearly imperceptible, but it was there. A mere mortal created by the gods dares to say he's my right-hand man. The pressure grew stronger, suffocating. Moj felt a claw on his heart. Suddenly, the pressure vanished. Nether looked at Moj and spoke, "I don't know where you got my lineage from, but you did a good job. That is why I shall reward you." Moj smiled. Never in his life had he thought his lord would praise him. "You shall die by my hands, mortal. Be honored." Moj's eyes widened as a dark tentacle pierced his back. From behind, he saw tens of thousands being devoured by the darkness. He looked up at Nether, only to see him crossing his legs, leaning his head on his hand, watching the people of the underworld being slaughtered without a hint of emotion. Moj felt horror. Nether would truly kill them. Breaking free from the dark tentacle, he used all of his will and authority. Moj was sure he would win. After all, Nether was only in a supreme body. But how wrong he was. In a mere second, his will was utterly crushed. Hundreds of dark tentacles pierced his body. How dare a mere sacred defy a demon's will? Moj didn't understand why his lord would do this. He still remembered how Nether. Before the end of the Doom War, Nether had returned to the underworld and given him his lineage, or so it should have happened. So why did he remember a figure wearing a mask of black lacquered wood, carved into the likeness of a demon with 7 twisted horns? Weaver. Those were the last words of Moj, the Lord of Blood, as he died by the hand of his own emperor. Nether looked at Moj's lifeless body, being devoured by the darkness. Even though he had devoured a sacred, he was still a supreme. The reason was simple: the mortal body he inhabited was missing a piece of its soul. Looking at where the crowd had been, he found nothing. All of them had been devoured by his darkness. The souls of those devoured traveled to him. In a single night, the underworld fell at the hands of its own emperor. Thus, the birth of the demon of destiny and choice was declared. The first to shed the blood of the gods. and the last child of the dream god. In an unknown place filled with golden and silver strings, a man in his 40s with black hair just beginning to gray and dull brown eyes devoid of emotion stood, gazing at the golden strings. He raised his hand to his face, removing it like a mask. Then another face appeared, but he didn't stop. He removed this face as well. Another appeared, and he did the same. Thousands, millions of masks lay on the ground. Weaver continued removing the masks until there was nothing, no, not nothing. For a second, the face was as bright as the sun, but in the next, it was as dark as the void. It was beautiful yet ugly. The face was ever changing, never stopping. Weaver's eyes were like voids filled with corruption and madness. In his other hand was a mask of black lacquered wood, carved into the likeness of a ferocious demon with 4 protruding fangs and 7 twisted horns rising like a crown. He put the mask on and looked away from the golden strings, vanishing into the unknown. Volume 5, Fool, End. Volume 6, Redemption, Opening Quote. He shall defy fate, defy the heavens, defy God. Everything is set, the finale is near. A war will begin that will sweep the world, and only the strong can survive. I hope you liked this volume. It took a lot time to decide the plot. I know there isn't many action as there was no important plot after V7 of Rzxs. This volume main theme was to show Raphael development to what he is now. I know you a lot of questions, but don't worry as it will be answered in the next volume. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the Fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic, chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Hand waving. Neffys walked forward, her wavering footsteps evidence of her exhaustion. The heavy smell of blood was unrelenting. Around her, broken statues and human remains were scattered everywhere. With every step, she either stepped on stone or bone. Looking at her left hand, which was being consumed by a white flame, she sighed. She glanced at the sky, but there was nothing but darkness. Her power was far weaker in the domain of darkness. The sun that once loomed over Godgrave was now nowhere to be seen, swallowed by the darkness. The same sun that had killed thousands of humans was now the very thing every human longed to see. Gritting her teeth, Neffys looked around. There was nothing but endless battles between humans and statues. Even a child would know that the humans didn't stand a chance. She wanted to use her flames to heal everyone, but the darkness shackled her. Her flame was like a torch surrounded by an abyss. Looking down at her shadow, her expression turned sorrowful. In the darkness, there were no shadows, making him far weaker. He had fought valiantly, yet even he had lost. Fortunately, he had escaped into her shadow at the last second. Shaking her head, she continued searching for Cassie or the Fire Keepers. But in this battlefield, filled with the screams of those fighting for their lives, she couldn't recognize anyone she knew. On the front lines, 2 people were fighting against their opponents. As for the third, he had already been killed by that thing, ripped apart into 2 pieces. If it hadn't been for that thing, they might have stood a chance against him. But his selfish desires had doomed humanity. Suddenly, information flooded her mind. Neffys's eyes widened as she looked at her shadow. Her mouth moved, trying to say something, but no words came out. Then, she felt the world around her changing, no, not the world itself, but the essence of the world shifting under someone's will. As a saint, she could clearly sense it. She looked up at the darkness, or what lay beyond the veil of darkness. Boom! The sound of thunder striking something echoed across the battlefield. Crack! Neffys's eyes widened as the darkness above her began to fracture. A small amount of light seeped through the cracks. Boom! The darkness that had loomed over her from all sides finally shattered, and light descended upon the battlefield. Those who had been blinded by darkness were now blinded by light. From the blinding light, a man descended. His long black hair waved as the wind swept through it. His onyx eyes, with a hint of gold, looked down at the battlefield like a god. His black wings, streaked with gold, flapped in the sky. The man raised his hand and slashed through the sky. The once solid darkness fell onto the dead god's bones like liquid. The stone statues collapsed, lifeless, without a single scratch. Behind the stone statues, the man who had sat motionless on his throne throughout the battle rose to his feet. He extended his hand toward the man in the sky and spoke solemnly. "Come, my last piece." The man in the sky summoned his weapon and descended toward the demon of destiny. The sound of steel clashing against steel echoed across the battlefield. 3 months until the day of redemption. Adam sat in his office in the nameless temple. In front of him was a map of Godgrave. He picked up a pencil from his desk and began drawing on the map. After a few minutes, Adam set the pencil down and sighed. Over the past few months, he had been trying to predict when Nether would attack. There were many possibilities, but only 3 stood out. The first would be at the Battle of Godheart, where the 2 armies were destined to clash for the first time. This was the scenario Adam hoped Nether would avoid. The reason was simple: while most of the soldiers from both armies were in good shape, the main characters were not. Not only was Sunny's nascent domain incomplete, but his plan was also far from ready. The second possibility would be at the Siege of the Crossings. Adam was certain that the Song army would lose against the Sword army. Quality always triumphed over quantity. The Lord of Shadows and the Changing Star would effortlessly take down most of the Song saints. Although Adam hoped Nether would attack at this time, he was sure he wouldn't. Not only would Nether be at a disadvantage due to the battlefield's location, but he would also face attacks from both the front and the rear. Nether was not stupid. He was the one who had waged war against the gods. Such obvious tactics were beneath him. Finally, there was the last possibility, the last battle. When both armies were tired and exhausted. Adam was as blind as everyone else. He didn't know how it would happen, where it would take place, or how it would end. Unfortunately, he couldn't see the future, thanks to the fractured state of fate itself. This was both a blessing and a curse. Since fate and destiny were intertwined, just as fate was in disarray, so too was destiny. This made it impossible for Nether to see the future, even if he needed to. It seems we have guests. Standing up, Adam left his office and walked through the nameless temple toward the throne room. As he approached, he heard someone speaking. "Nephews of Valor, welcome. I did not expect to be visited by someone as exalted as the last daughter of the immortal flame." Adam entered the throne room. Both the Fire Keepers and Nephews herself turned to look at him. Approaching the throne, Adam bent slightly and placed his hand over his chest, speaking respectfully. "Lord Shadow, please forgive your foolish subordinate for not greeting you upon your return." There was a moment of silence before Sunny responded, "You are forgiven." Adam nodded and walked to stand beside the throne. Sunny, his face hidden beneath the Weaver's mask, was visibly flustered. "You're not forgiven, Adam. Why did you have to show up at this particular moment?" That was what Sunny wanted to say, but he couldn't, thanks to the Weaver's mask and the fact that Adam was a supreme. Nephews glanced at where Adam had stood before he vanished into the shadows. "Cassie, I couldn't see." Nephews frowned at Cassie's words and replied. "Cassie, I know you can't see. That's not what I meant. I couldn't see anything about him, it was just like how I couldn't see Raphael's status before." Nephews frowned deeper as Cassie mentioned Raphael. They had been searching for him throughout the Walking Realm and the parts of the Dream Realm controlled by humans. On that day, she had been in awe, not just her, but everyone in Antarctica. His voice, his presence, was intimidating. The moment he spoke, she felt as though the world itself bent to his will. He defied all logic, achieving supremacy while still an ascended. She didn't know how, but he had done it. He had achieved supremacy without the spell. With him, she had thought he would help her against Kisong and Anvil. But he had vanished from Earth, never to be seen again. So she had searched for him in the Dream Realm, hoping to ask for his help against the Sovereigns and to learn how he had achieved supremacy. Yet, he was nowhere to be found. The only place he could be was beyond the Hollow Mountains, and Nephews had lost hope of reaching there, as she wasn't strong enough. Adam, standing beside Sunny, was aware of Nephes's thoughts but remained silent. Rzxs stared into the darkness, then bowed slowly. Greetings, Lord of Shadows. I hope you don't mind being addressed this way, or would you prefer I call you something else? I would not. But you may call me Shadow, the Lord of Shadows responded. Adam glanced at Sunny, his face as stoic as ever. There was quite a resemblance between him and Saint in that regard. Look at him, trying to be a lion when he's just a cat, Adam thought, shaking his head. Sunny was aware of Adam's gaze but paid it no mind. To what do I owe the honor of being in the presence of Lady Changing Star? What do you want from me? Rzxs didn't respond immediately, taking her time before finally speaking. And when she did, she didn't disappoint. Then, Lord Shadow, I won't be coy, you asked me what I want. It's simple. She paused for a moment, then added in her usual impassive tone. I want you. Adam's face twitched for a second. Even he, who knew little about human romance, wasn't that dense. He glanced at Sunny, whose face was hidden beneath the Weaver's mask. Though he couldn't see it, he was certain it was beet red. At this point, Adam stopped listening to their conversation. The only reason he was there was to ensure Sunny didn't do anything foolish. Before he knew it, the Lord of Shadows was engaged in a duel with the Fire Keepers, though, in truth, Adam had known it would happen. Walking over to Rzxs, he asked, Lady Changing Star, would you like tea or coffee? Rzxs looked at him and replied, I don't need anything. Adam nodded and stood beside her, watching Sunny spar with the Fire Keepers. He's certainly having fun. From his right, he heard Rzxs speaking to him. Have we met before? Ah. It's Adam, Lady Changing Star. As for whether we've met before, it would have been an honor, but unfortunately, this is our first meeting. I see. Rzxs was certain she had met him before. Though her memory wasn't as sharp as Cassie's, she was confident in it. She was sure she had seen his face somewhere. She sighed and continued observing the Lord of Shadows. The battle had already ended, with the last Fire Keeper falling. Looking at the Lord of Shadows, Rzxs walked toward him, unsheathing her sword. Adam glanced at her and said, Good luck, Lady Changing Star. The two dashed toward each other, each wielding their own transcendent battle styles, though one of them was using a fake one. Over the past year, Adam had sparred with Sunny multiple times. Though he wasn't on Medici's level, he was still one of humanity's best fighters. Thanks to their duels, Sunny had perfected his transcendent battle style. Unfortunately, his nascent domain was still incomplete. The duel between the two continued for some time. The winner was clearly the Lord of Shadows. Not only was his transcendent battle art far superior to her imitation, but she had also underestimated him by not using her true transcendent battle art. In the end, the duel ended in a draw. Not because Sunny couldn't defeat her, but because he didn't want to. His plan had been to let her win, but he had been having so much fun that he momentarily forgot. The Lord of Shadows admitted defeat, even though he had clearly been winning, and made a secret deal with the Changing Star. And Adam remained in the shadows, watching it all unfold. Hello everyone, I'm finally back after a whole week. I would like to say I'm sorry for not uploading. Anyway, for an apology I gave you a little teaser about the end of the volume. And for every Muslim their Ramadan Mubarak. Hope you have a great year. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the Fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic, chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Hand waving. Author note. Cassie didn't know Sunny's name at this time, she knew after this flashback. Cassie frowned. She had been watching the Lord of Shadows' memories for a while now. She saw how he ventured into the Hollow Mountains, surviving there in a way no one had ever thought possible. She didn't see the creatures that lived there, but she felt them through Sunny. No wonder it was impossible, the things that lived there were unimaginable. She continued watching as the Lord of Shadows finally reached the other side. The place that made them what they are now. I'm back. Cassie had suspected that Sunny was on the Forgotten Shore too, but now she was certain. The problem was that she didn't remember him. Cassie's memory was far superior to most. She remembered every face of those who had lived on the forgotten shore, yet she didn't recognize him at all. This deepened her frown, and the suspicion that her memories had been tampered with grew stronger. So he also fought in the siege of the Crimson Spire. She wasn't surprised that he had escaped the forgotten shore. He must have exited through the gate. Cassie watched as the Lord of Shadows gathered the remains of the dreamers of the Dark City. She watched as he made graves for them and carved a few runes into the surface of the black stone. The runes read, "Here lie those who extinguished the sun. Dreamers of the Dark City. Sleep well. Your nightmare is over." Cassie whispered under her breath, "Thank you, all of you. Sleep well. Your nightmare is over." With everything done, Sunny marched toward the Dark City, but what he found there was entirely different. Cassie's eyes widened. She never thought she would see a sun in the sky. The only sun there had been was that of the Crimson Spire, and even that wasn't a true sun. Yet here, before her eyes, was a sun that shone with warm light. Sunny walked toward the once dark city. Before, there had been nothing but ashen ground, but now there was green grass with trees all around. Reaching the city, Sunny entered using Shadow Step. The Dark City had never disappointed Cassie. Through the Lord of Shadows' memories, she saw a city like Bastion, though far smaller. It was just as alive as Bastion was. Men and women walked the streets, living their lives. The women giggled, the men laughed. It was so different from the life they had known there, which had been filled with nothing but blood and fear. Sunny moved through the shadows, listening to conversations. He deduced two things. 1. All the residents of the Bright City had not been summoned to the forgotten shore but had been rescued by one of the children, most likely the Child of Time. 2. The ruler of the Bright City was undoubtedly Raphael. Cassie already knew this. One day, hundreds of sleepers had been found near the citadels of both the Sword Domain and the Song Domain. The first to notice this were the sovereigns themselves. Those sleepers were interrogated, and they all told the same story. When we were lost, injured, and afraid, His Grace sent one of His children to take us to His kingdom, where we all lived in peace and harmony under His protection. Some even believed that Raphael was a god. He created things from nothing and brought life to a dead land. Those people were religious fanatics. They brought books they called Genesis and began sharing what was written, but they were quickly suppressed. Cassie sighed and continued watching as Shadow moved throughout the city until he reached a cathedral. The once dark cathedral was now brimming with light. Its white marble and stained glass reflected the light of the sun, making it look divine. Entering the cathedral, Cassie saw the man who was with the Lord of Shadows. The first child of Raphael, Adam, the child of fate. Cassie didn't know what the connection between him and Sunny was, but she knew she would find out soon. In front of Adam stood a statue of Raphael. Cassie immediately recognized him. It was the same as the middle head of the three-headed titan. This time, there was only one head, and behind it was a disc resembling the sun. Shadow sat on one of the benches, watching everyone, praying. He wasn't sure what they were doing. Cassie watched as the Lord of Shadows tried to leave, just like the others, but Adam suddenly spoke to him. They conversed, which led to the Lord of Shadows meeting Raphael. Cassie focused on the conversation between Sunny and Raphael. Who would have thought that a divine shadow still exists, even after the death of the Shadow God? So the Lord of Shadows is a divine shadow, and it seems that divine shadows can't exist without the Shadow God. Suddenly, everything became blurry. Cassie couldn't hear or see the rest of the conversation between them. The only reason for that to happen was because Shadow himself didn't want her to see that memory. Of course, she could force it, but she chose not to. The memory sped up, as if watching a video at double speed. Cassie continued watching, and finally, she learned the truth that broke her heart. The two of them had actually been three, all along. With that, Cassie closed her eyes, breaking the connection between her and the Lord of Shadows. It had been some time since Cassie had seen Sunny's memories. But now, here they were again. Without explanation, he asked her to see his memories once more, but this time, he said it would be the last. She looked into Sunny's eyes and ventured in, with Sunny guiding her. What she saw made her body tremble. There, before her eyes, stood the creation of humanity. The land Sunny stood upon was the same as the one where hell had descended upon them. Without a doubt, what was in front of her was Antarctica. I thought we had more time. Suddenly, Cassie felt someone approaching Sunny. Since he was looking down at the ground, he didn't notice at first. Sunny raised his head to see Adam moving toward him. The two spoke, and their conversation made Cassie understand many things. Somehow, Raphael had been able to remember Sunny. The secret of no body was revealed. No body was Sunny, and Sunny knew everything about the tomb of Ariel because he had challenged the nightmare with them. But what made Cassie's breathing quicken and her body tremble in fear was what Raphael told Sunny. He had lost against Nether. The demon of destiny and the lastborn of the forgotten god had finally awakened. The war that was coming was not a war between humanity to determine who would wear the crown of humanity, no. It was a war that would determine whether humanity would live or perish. A mid-chapter about a mid-volume. What can I say? I really hate volume 8, man. Like, I tried writing this chapter a lot of times, but I couldn't. It was so boring. Anyways, we will enter the war arc next chapter. That's why I want to ask you all something and try to guess. Who will be the first to achieve supremacy? By the way, I gave a hint in the last chapter. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the Fanfiction room, and search for mine. It's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Hand waving. Cassie stood in front of Ki Song, her body no longer under her control since the queen's blood flowed through her veins. The flood of information entering her mind brought on a headache, but she forced herself to keep listening. Cassie felt her anger rise. They had tried to kill an innocent girl simply because she might become a threat in the future. The thought filled her with utter disgust. Cassie smiled darkly. You have my sympathy. How inconvenient. Ki Song shrugged. Why, thank you. It really was. However, young Nephis was really the least of our concerns. Because, as you can imagine, the mutual responsibility between us three did not last long. Cassie inhaled deeply. Was there something particular that caused you to grow openly hostile to each other? The queen remained silent for a bit, then smiled wryly. Yes. No. It was a gradual process. At first, we were busy establishing our domains, subjugating neighboring regions of the Dream Realm, and stabilizing our territories. But once we reached the ceiling of what we could achieve without encroaching on each other's lands, things turned much more tenuous between us. Both Anvil and I wanted to swallow the Stormzea, but neither could move without provoking the other. The Dreamspawn, meanwhile, was growing stranger with each year. The tension continued to build, until one day, we saw a chance. Cassie raised an eyebrow. What chance? One of the youths chuckled. The chance to get rid of the Dreamspawn, of course. That guy, you see, aimed his attention at the moon. Cassie blinked. The moon. The queen nodded. Yes, the moon. Earth's moon, to be precise, Luna. Well, not the moon itself, of course, rather, what is hidden on the moon. Huh. Cassie tried to suppress her curiosity, but failed. And what, exactly, is hidden on the moon? The dead girl laughed melodiously. Ki Song smiled. Cassie's eyes widened as she listened to Ki Song. What was hidden on the moon was possibly a Category 6 Nightmare Gate, a gate that, if conquered, would grant one the power of a god. There was also another possibility. The gate might be the seed of the nightmare spell, the source of its invasion into their reality. Cassie exhaled slowly. The world still holds so many mysteries. Ki Song remained silent for a little while, then sighed. In any case, the Dreamspawn grew intrigued by the moon, and so, he endeavored to visit it. And using the chance, Anvil and I made sure that he never returned. We massacred his followers and erased his name from the network, from the culture, from the annals of history, forbade the government to ever mention him again, and killed everyone who had ever met him face to face. Well, most of them, at least. A wicked smile twisted her alluring lips. There were no citadels under his control, And we had hidden our existence, the existence of the sovereigns, from the very beginning to limit the spread of his fame, and therefore of his domain. Even if it forced all three of us into the shadows. So, his domain crumbled in an instant, and he was stranded on the moon, his power severely diminished. We had hoped that he would die there, but of course, we weren't that lucky. That fiend still draws breath out there, in the coldness of space, looking at us from above. He can even exert his influence somewhat, sometimes, albeit not too much of it. Cassie frowned. What Ki-song was saying was obviously wrong, because on that day, the Dreamspawn had entered the dream realm and fought alongside Anvil and Ki-song against the underworld. Cassie's eyes widened as she finally understood why the sovereigns seemed so eager to kill one another. She had thought it might be because of the underworld, but now she knew. It was because of Astarion. You said that you and Anvil imprisoned him on the moon with no way to enter the dream realm, but that was obviously wrong. Ki-song remained silent for a while, then took a deep breath. Both Anvil and I thought the fiend had no way to return, but we were wrong. From the beginning, that fiend could have returned at any time, yet he didn't, or at least he didn't show himself, lurking in the shadows. We both feared what that fiend was orchestrating in the shadows. She fell silent, then chuckled. Well, I feared him, but I don't know about Anvil. We tried to search for any traces of him to figure out what he was planning, but we found nothing. That fiend was a devil in human skin, and we couldn't let him roam the world freely. So, if we couldn't uncover his plans, we decided to crush him along with them. For that, we needed more power. Cassie didn't need to hear what Ki-song would say next. The Queen's words had confirmed everything she had theorized. Well, I seem to have answered all of your question, Song of the Fallen. How's that? Was that enough for a barter? Cassie lowered her head. It's plenty, Your Majesty. Ki-song nodded with a hint of amusement. I've shown you plenty of grace, then. What do I get in exchange? Cassie gathered her thoughts while inhaling deeply. Here it goes, then. Things would start happening fast once she opened her mouth. But that was the best course of action. The sovereigns had to be somewhat equal in strength when they clashed. And at the moment, the King of Swords was holding too big of an advantage. She sighed. I mentioned knowing a lot of secrets, one of which is especially valuable. I'll share it with you as gratitude for showing me grace. Straightening her back, Cassie lingered for a moment and then said in a somber tone. The king has secretly carved a path through the hollows of the breastbone and the western first rib. His troops will soon emerge from the jungle and attack the lesser stronghold crossing from the rear. It will happen by the end of tomorrow, or perhaps even sooner. Now that Valor wants me dead, my life is tied to the well-being of the Song clan. So, I thought I'd let you know. A heavy silence settled in the throne room. Seishin seemed startled, her eyes widening slightly. The queen, however, remained composed. A few moments later, she leaned forward a little. Weren't there a cursed tyrant barring the path to the hollows of the first rib? Cassie lowered her head. There was. The king killed it. Ki-song raised an eyebrow. He killed a cursed tyrant swiftly and quietly enough for its death to go unnoticed. Ah, how curious. She remained motionless for a while. And then smiled. Well, that certainly changes things. The Song army launched a surprise attack led by the Queen's puppets. The Sword army, caught off guard, was easily overwhelmed. Thankfully, the Queen spared the Sword army and allowed them to retreat. The Sword army, led by Changing Star, regrouped and joined the king. After days of traveling across the skeleton, both armies stood facing each other. They were tired and exhausted. All of them longed for the war to end so they could return to their families. From above, on the chained islands, Sunny looked down at both armies. His mind raced with thoughts. The sovereigns were a headache, but something far worse was waiting for them. He had wanted to become a supreme before this battle began, but he couldn't. Nether could strike at any moment, yet he hadn't. Even Adam was growing frustrated. Before him, the sovereigns walked to the center of the battlefield. Suddenly, he heard a voice in his mind. Sunny, can you hear me? Adam, did he figure out when Nether will attack? I can hear you. Come quickly to the Nameless Temple now. Bring Weaver's mask with you. Sunny remained silent for a moment. The urgency in Adam's voice suggested time was running out. I'm coming. The connection between them was cut. Sunny told Aiko he would be gone for a while. Summoning Weaver's mask, he ventured into the shadows, heading toward the nameless temple. I see why people hate writing fanfics. When I was writing Asterion descending to the dream realm, I never thought that he was prisoned in the moon. I thought he was just chilling there. Anyway, the last arc is here and finally I will finish this fanfic. I also plan to write another fanfic, hopefully better than this one. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the fanfiction room and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic, chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Hand waving. In a moment, Sunny reached the nameless temple. It was dark as usual, surrounded by shadows on all sides. Venturing inside the temple, Sunny didn't find Adam anywhere, so he stepped back outside. There, in the back of the temple, Adam knelt on his knees, praying. Sunny walked forward, approaching Adam. He could hear him whispering something, but even with his transcendent hearing, he couldn't make out the words. Adam stood up and looked back at Sunny. His face was as emotionless as always, or so Sunny would have said. But this time, even Adam seemed nervous and afraid. Who wouldn't be? The enemy they were fighting against was a demon. Sunny looked at Adam and asked, when will the underworld attack? He didn't waste time. The Sovereign's battle had awakened the scarlet forest beneath them, and with it came a tide of nightmare creatures. Adam remained silent for a moment, then replied, anytime now. Sunny chuckled faintly. This world really loved to screw him over, with fate or without it. Then what do we do? You've been planning for everything, and every time I ask you, you refuse to answer. I have a plan, Adam said, pausing briefly before continuing, but you won't like it. Sunny frowned but didn't interrupt, letting Adam explain. As you know, your nascent domain is complete, and the final step to achieving supremacy is performing an act of supreme defiance. Sunny nodded. He already knew this from Rzxs. My father completed his act of defiance when he fully formed his nascent domain as an ascended, defying the laws of the world itself. Adam sighed and continued, unfortunately, you don't have the time to figure out what your act of defiance will be. So, we'll take a more forceful approach. Before Sunny's eyes, as if an illusion had materialized, something appeared. Behind Adam stood an inverted cross, and nailed to it was the same creature that had once stolen his fate, the vile thieving bird. Sunny's body began to tremble. He still remembered how that thing had clawed through his body, reaching his very soul. He looked at Adam, his eyes demanding an explanation. Adam met his gaze and said, I told you, didn't I? You wouldn't like it. Are you saying my act of defiance is killing it? Sunny understood the consequences of killing the creature, but Adam struck him with another shock. If killing it would achieve the supreme act of defiance, I wouldn't have to think so hard about it. Adam sighed and continued, killing the vile thieving bird won't count as an act of defiance, but it will start the process. Your act of defiance shall be, defying fate. This was the only plan he and his father had come up with. Of course, they knew defying fate was nearly impossible, and they hadn't initially known how to do it, but they didn't need to. Someone in the past had already laid the groundwork. Defying fate was a gamble with a 1% chance of success. Adam suddenly looked away and muttered, it started. Sunny, still reeling from Adam's revelation, stood frozen like a statue. Adam turned back to Sunny and said, you have your choice now, Sunless. Looking at Adam, and at the same time through the Lord of Shadow's sight, Sunny stood between two options. Ah, I understand. At that moment, Sunny understood the heavy burden the sovereigns carried. On the battlefield, the Sword Army, led by the Lord of Shadows and Changing Star, had joined forces with the Song Army to fight against the tide of nightmare creatures. Unfortunately, the two armies struggled to coordinate. They had different strategies, formations, and, most importantly, a deep-seated hatred for one another. On the right wing of the army, a man spotted the killer of his wife among the enemy ranks. He struck the man down, but the opposing army retaliated, killing him in turn. Similar incidents occurred across the battlefield. If not for the saints and masters, the situation would have spiraled out of control. The merged army fought valiantly against the tide, but everything changed when the air grew heavy. From behind the army, a gate materialized. A man emerged from the gate. His black hair reached his shoulders, and his eyes were dull black with hints of white, like the night sky. His face was undeniably handsome, as if crafted by the gods themselves. The Lord of Shadows, atop his dread stallion, stared at the man, his body freezing as he took in the scene. Behind the man stood an army of stone saints, motionless like statues, awaiting orders. They didn't have to wait long. The man extended his hand, and the underworld army began to move through the gate, taking their first steps onto the dead god's bones. The bones beneath them shook and trembled as the army advanced. From the gate, darkness surged forth, enveloping the entire battlefield in shadow. For the first time, darkness descended upon Godgrave. The saints and masters stood in fear, remembering the day they had been slaughtered by a single man. Above them, the sovereigns halted their battle and turned their attention to the underworld army. They quickly launched an attack, hoping to prevent the enemy from fully emerging through the gate. But they were stopped as two stone statues stepped forward to block their path. Anvil and Song instinctively recognized that these statues were of supreme rank. With the sovereigns now engaged in battle against their new foes, the human army was left without leaders or protectors. Thankfully, even as Ki Song fought the supreme statue, her puppets remained active, crushing the tide of nightmare creatures. But despite her efforts, the tide continued to assault the human army. Caught between the underworld army and the nightmare creatures, the human army watched in terror as the underworld forces advanced toward them. Finally, the underworld army clashed with the human army. Exhausted, terrified, and fighting on two fronts, the human army was utterly crushed. Their screams echoed across the battlefield, and their blood was spilled. Behind the underworld army, Nether sat on his throne, watching everything unfold. Hell had descended upon humanity. 2 chapters in a day, I'm telling you I'm back in my prime. Finally the beginning of the last arc, I'm so excited to write it, man. The amount of plot twists that will be revealed in this volume will be peak, I'm telling you. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the Fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic, chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Hand waving. Join into one formation. Nephis yelled at the soldiers of both armies, but her orders were lost in the chaos. Gritting her teeth, Nephis summoned her angelic wings and took to the dark sky. Looking down at the battlefield, her expression darkened. The situation was far worse than she had thought. The left wing of the human army was being massacred by the second. The central army was holding its ground against the underworld forces, but the right wing, though less attacked by the underworld army, was closer to the cracks, making it the first target for the tide of nightmare creatures. Nephis knew that if the human army wanted to escape this dire situation, their hope lay with the right wing. If the right wing could stop the tide of nightmare creatures and break through the left flank of the underworld army, they could then target the right flank of the central underworld forces. The problem, however, was the left wing of the human army. If the underworld broke through and attacked the central army, the human forces would be doomed. It was a race against time, and the scales were tipped in the underworld's favor. Dodging projectiles from the underworld army, Nephis descended to where the Lord of Shadows stood. Sunny, who had just pierced one of the transcendent stone statues with his spear, looked up at Nephis in surprise. What happened? After explaining her plan, Sunny quickly agreed. Ordering Saint, Fiend, and Nightmare to reinforce the right wing, Sunny smiled and turned his attention inward, to his soul sea. Inside, a serpent so massive it coiled around his soul sea awaited. The serpent didn't wait for Sunny's command, as if it had been longing to break free. Sunny's shadow grew larger and larger until, finally, the serpent surged forth, its massive body descending upon the tide of nightmare creatures, crushing them beneath its weight. Those who survived were torn apart by its fangs. The serpent raised its head and let out a strange, deafening sound that burst the eardrums of anyone nearby. Those who witnessed the serpent held their breath, intimidated by its sheer presence. Nightmare darted between the soldiers, charging toward the tide of nightmare creatures. Sunny, atop Nightmare, wielded his spear, piercing through everything in his path. Saint and Fiend fought side by side against the tide. Seeing the Lord of Shadows join them, the right wing of the human army felt a glimmer of confidence and rallied behind him. On the other side of the battlefield, Nephis fought valiantly against the underworld army, slowing their advance. Even she couldn't do this alone. Beside her, the Fire Keepers joined their lady in this seemingly suicidal attack. Gritting her teeth, Nephis thrust with blessing, destroying another stone statue. Her white flames ran along her blade, making it a beacon of light in the darkness. But that was the most she could do. Her flames were shackled by the overwhelming darkness, making it difficult to heal herself, let alone heal those around her. Even with Nephis and the Fire Keepers slowing the enemy's advance, the underworld army continued to push forward relentlessly. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed from the left flank of the underworld army. Summoning her wings, Nephis flew into the sky to investigate. There, Rzxs and the Blood Sisters were launching a surprise attack on the underworld forces. With Rzxs distracting the enemy, Nephis ordered a full assault, hoping to reach the Blood Sisters and combine their forces. The enemy formation, thrown into chaos by the surprise attack, was now easier to push back. After 30 minutes of clashing aspect powers and darkness, the Fire Keepers finally reached the Blood Sisters. Looking at Nephis, Rzxs spoke with a hint of annoyance, "You're late." Nephis didn't respond, focusing instead on destroying more stone statues. Rzxs giggled and asked, "Are you still angry about Cassia?" Nephis shot her a sharp glance, clearly struck a nerve. The two joined forces, fighting side by side against the underworld army. Following their leaders, the Fire Keepers and Blood Sisters fought together. At last, the Dreamer army of the Forgotten Shore was reborn. The right wing of the underworld army slowed, but they were still advancing, dangerously close to breaking through the right wing of the human army. Fortunately, the human army's right wing managed to halt the tide of nightmare creatures. Under the Lord of Shadows' orders, they threw everything they had at the left wing of the underworld army, their backs protected by Sunny's shadows. Unlike the right wing, the left wing of the underworld army was weaker, thanks to the disparity in numbers between the two forces. The human army pushed forward relentlessly. Sunny, at the forefront, thrust his spear at a transcendent stone statue. The statue parried the attack, but it quickly regretted its move as Nightmare's horns pierced through its body. After an hour of fighting, Sunny finally caught sight of the end of the underworld army. But it was too late. The right wing of the underworld army broke through the left wing of the human army, attacking the central forces from behind. Behind the human army, a man walked calmly, his steps filled with confidence. His presence was felt by the strong, as the world itself seemed to bend around him with every step. Wearing a tattered spacesuit with a cracked helmet visor, the man looked up at the sovereigns. "You two think highly of yourselves. Why do you assume I need a plan to defeat you?" Reaching the left wing of the human army, the stone statues suddenly collapsed, lifeless. "I don't care who rules humanity. What I care about is this world, its mysteries, and the only thing that can answer my questions, what lies on the moon." Nephis glared at the man, her eyes filled with hatred. "Ah, but I'm too weak. The knowledge on the moon is something only gods can comprehend. The heart god is the god of souls, and the stone statues are mere vessels imbued with the souls of underworld residents." The man clenched his fist, crushing the souls within the stone statues, reducing them to lifeless rubble. "After decades of searching for a way to become a god, he came to me. A contract was formed, and the deal was sealed. In exchange for the secret of godhood, I will join this war until Raphael, the Black Emperor, is dead. The Dreamspawn, the abomination, the one who must not be named, Astarion, the descendant of the heart god, had finally descended onto the battlefield. Yet, the scales of war had not shifted. You think this is peak? Believe me, this is nothing. I'm still cooking something far better than this chapter. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic, chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Hand waving. Mordred gazed at Godgrave in silence. What was happening there was beyond his expectations. Nevertheless, it was also a good thing. The battle between the sovereigns, the underworld's unexpected attack, and Astarion joining humanity against the underworld, Mordred saw it all. There was no better opportunity for him to exact his revenge. Both his father and the abomination were within his reach, but he didn't let his anger control him. He waited patiently for the chance to kill them both. I'm lucky, I think. Mordred chuckled. Looking toward where his sister was, Mordred raised an eyebrow. So you've lost all hope, dear sister. The saints of the House of Night had left Bastion, returning to the waking world. Even the government saints seemed to be retreating. But everything changed when Saint Nightingale used his aspect powers on Morgan. That's a bold move. Mordred didn't intervene. He simply continued to watch everything unfold. He had thought he might have to fight Morgan in her suicidal attack, but to his surprise, the one left in Bastion was none other than raised by wolves. He stood still, trying to decipher their plan. Through one of his vessels outside Bastion, Mordred saw Nightingale flying toward Night Garden. Are they trying to take Night Garden from me? Mordred couldn't stop laughing as he finally understood what was happening. He knew Nephis wanted to overthrow the sovereigns, but they couldn't do so because of the sovereigns' overwhelming power. So, they must have planned to weaken the sovereigns by taking Ravenheart, Night Garden, and Bastion from Keysong and Anvil, thereby diminishing their domains. It wasn't a bad plan, if he had to rate it. But the problem lay in what was happening in Godgrave. Mordred chuckled and walked toward Raised by Wolves, a smile on his face. Effie, who was doubting whether she could complete her mission, was surprised to see Mordred approaching her in his real body. So you've finally shown yourself, you rat. Mordred chuckled at her words. I didn't come here to fight you, Raised by Wolves, he said, pausing for a moment before continuing. Let's have a peaceful talk. Effie frowned. Just moments ago, she had been planning to fight this lunatic. What do you want? I don't need anything. In fact, I'm quite fascinated by your plans. Effie clicked her tongue. This bastard is too smart for his own good. I don't understand. Mordred chuckled. There's no need to hide it. You're clearly trying to take Ravenheart, Night Garden, and Bastion under your control. Am I right? Effie's face twitched for a second, but Mordred noticed it immediately. Ah, it seems I was right. How did you know? Effie didn't bother denying it. They had already accounted for this possibility. Mordred smiled and pointed to where he was standing. You see, Raised by Wolves, I'm here. He then pointed in another direction, specifically toward Godgrave, and said, I'm there. Extending both hands, he added, I'm everywhere. Nothing can hide from my eyes. As he spoke, he saw Nightingale attacking Ravenheart through one of his vessels. He also saw Soul Reaper assaulting Night Garden. Mordred laughed, and Effie's frown deepened. Ha ha ha, let me ask you, Athena. When was the last time you received news about what's happening in Godgrave? Effie didn't respond. Mordred shook his head and continued, if I were to guess, it's been a while. His smile widened. Then you must not know what's going on in Godgrave right now. Effie stared directly into Mordred's eyes, challenging him to enter her soul. But he didn't take the bait, instead maintaining his smile as he waited for her answer. She sneered. What if I don't know what's going on? I'm sure they're doing just fine. Oh, but they aren't. Mordred paused for a moment, then said, would you believe me if I told you that the sovereigns are fighting side by side against a common enemy? Effie couldn't help but laugh. The sovereigns are fighting side by side. Like hell they are. But they are, Mordred replied. What do you mean? You see, while the sovereigns were fighting each other, the underworld seized the opportunity to attack both armies. Fortunately, the Song and Sword armies joined forces and fought against the underworld as one. Mordred glanced toward Godgrave and continued, unfortunately, the human army was still crushed. Thankfully, the third sovereign, that abomination, entered the battle and saved them all. Mordred began pacing in circles as he spoke. The reason both armies were able to withstand the underworld's forces was thanks to Ki Song and her domain. Effie's face paled as she finally understood what Mordred was trying to tell her. Now, guess what will happen when Ki Song's domain crumbles? The answer was simple: humanity would be doomed. Ha 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 ha. You and your pathetic group, who were trying to save the world, are the ones bringing about its doom. What a joke. Mordred laughed like a maniac. This was too much, even for him. Effie's face lost all color, turning pale. The plan they had made to kill the sovereigns had backfired horribly. And there was no way to tell Kai and Jet to stop. They clearly wouldn't listen to Mordred, even if he tried to intervene. They might have just doomed humanity. What a horrid travesty. What will you do, Athena? Will you continue to fight me and take Bastion, or will you try to stop Nightingale and Soul Reaper before they seize the citadels? Choose, raised by wolves. You don't have time. Fuck. Gritting her teeth, Effie turned and ran away from Mordred, heading toward the storm sea. Mordred watched her go, then turned and made his way to False Bastion. As he approached, he took in the sight. It was far different from what he remembered. Everywhere he looked, men and women walked about, laughing and oblivious to the battle raging outside, a battle that could determine humanity's fate. With a smile on his face, Mordred breathed in the air of Bastion for the first time in a decade. He reached the castle and walked inside, heading straight for the throne room. No one tried to stop him, no one dared to. Opening the door, Mordred saw the throne that had once belonged to his father. He walked toward it slowly, each step deliberate. Reaching the throne, Mordred placed his hand on it. How long he had dreamed of this moment, only he knew. Finally, Mordred sat on his rightful throne. The prince had returned to reclaim what was his. The fallen Prince of Valor. The rightful heir of Bastion. Mordred, the Prince of Nothing, had conquered Bastion alone. I want to thank G3, I was squeezing my mind trying to find a way to weaken Ki Song for days now, then like a savior he dropped these last 2 chapters saving me. Again thank you G3. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the Fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic, chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Hand waving. Adam remained silent, waiting for Sunny's choice. He wasn't surprised by Astarion's descent onto the battlefield. After all, he was the one who had made the deal with him. Even though giving Astarion the path to becoming a sacred was dangerous, it was the only way. Even if I agree, what makes you sure that we'll be able to defy fate? Adam looked at Sunny and replied, simple. I'm not. Only 2 beings truly understand how fate works: Weaver, the demon of fate, and the dream god, the creator of the law of fate. Neither I nor my father knows much about the secrets of fate. But we don't need to. Everything has already been planned. Sunny remained silent for a moment, then asked, by Weaver. Yes, Adam replied. And you really trust the demon of fate? Or you putting all your hope in him? Sunny, you don't know anything. Sunny sneered. Then tell me, damn it. Adam looked at him and sighed. When the dream god split himself into 7 pieces, the demons were born. Knowing this, the 6 gods took care of the dream god's 7 parts. You could say they were trying to atone for their sins. Weaver, the demon of fate, was taken in by the shadow god. From the moment he was born, Weaver was fascinated by the mysteries of the world and sought knowledge everywhere, especially since he was under the care of the god of mysteries. Adam paused for a moment, as if hesitating, but he continued nonetheless. After roaming the divine and mortal worlds, Weaver had accumulated more knowledge than anyone. Yet, there were still mysteries he couldn't unravel. Where is the void? What were the demons? Where did he and his siblings come from? There were countless unanswered questions, and Weaver knew the answers lay within the void. So he searched for the void, and in the end, he found it. Even knowing the dangers, Weaver entered the void without the gods' knowledge. And there, he found his answers. There was a seventh god, a god sealed within the void. But that thing was no longer a god. Seeing the truth and the sins of the gods, Weaver returned, escaping the void. But the price was paid. He was corrupted. Sunny's eyes widened, his face growing paler than it already was. There were many contradictions in what Adam had said, but Sunny didn't interrupt, waiting for him to finish. When Weaver saw the truth, he finally understood why the gods monitored the demons. If the dream god were to break free, the universe would be doomed. Knowing the gods would kill him, Weaver hid himself from the world. Even after learning the sins of the gods, Weaver didn't hate them. He had seen the horrors of the void. He fought against the corruption of the dream god, but he knew he would eventually lose. So, he began creating a weapon capable of stopping the dream god's corruption. Adam looked at Sunny and said, "You must have figured out what that weapon is." Sunny nodded. "The nightmare spell." Adam nodded. Yes, the nightmare spell was a weapon created by Weaver to aid all realms against the invasion. If corruption reached a realm, the nightmare spell would come to their aid, helping them grow stronger. When you conquer a nightmare seed, the nightmare spell rewards you generously, slowing the invasion. The more you change fate, the more you weaken the dream god, thus delaying the invasion. Adam paused for a moment, then continued, "Of course, that's not the only purpose of the nightmare spell." Sunny frowned. He didn't need to theorize what the other purpose was, Adam would tell him. "What's the other purpose?" "Well, of course, it's to seal Weaver," Adam replied. Sunny held his head. "This doesn't make any sense." While creating the nightmare spell, the corruption inside Weaver grew stronger. So much so that his thoughts and reasoning were being tampered with. Under the influence of the dream god, he manipulated the demons to start a war against the gods. The war between the two forces began to destroy the universe, weakening the seal around the void. Even under the influence of corruption, Weaver completed the nightmare spell and gave it to those who followed him. Adam took a deep breath and looked at the sky, then said, "In his corruption, Weaver opened the gates to the void. The world became hell. The gods did what they could and sealed the void again, using themselves as the seal. The gods were gone, and the demons were dead. Only Weaver remained alive. He had already done everything he could to help the remaining realms in the future. Entering his own creation, Weaver sealed himself." Sunny remained silent for a moment, then said, "Listen, let's say I believe you. What does this whole story have to do with me defying fate?" "Everything," Adam replied. Weaver knew the dream god would try to find another vessel. That's why he made a contingency plan. He created his own lineage and split it into 7 parts, scattering them across the realms. With fate being weakened every time someone conquers a nightmare seed, and given the state of fate after you lost yours, fate is now at its weakest. Adam gazed at Sunny and said, "You see, Sunny, there's no better time to defy fate and slow the invasion at the same time." Sunny clenched his fists. "Who is the vessel?" Adam spoke again, solemnly, "You don't get it, do you? My father is no mere vessel for a demon. He's the vessel of the dream god. And you, Sunless, is the sword forged by the demon of fate to kill that vessel." The moment Raphael accepted his fate, he wasn't accepting the fate his father had chosen for him. He was accepting the fate Weaver had created. If you didn't understand, the Weaver Raphael saw in the nightmare spell was not Weaver but the dream god corruption. When the dream god said that Sunny losing his fate was part of its plan, it was also lying. The reason for this was to manipulate Raphael into thinking that he was in his side. But Raphael saw through the dream god lies. I hope you all like these plot twists. I was working on it for quite some time. Unfortunately, I didn't have the chance to explain how Raphael was born, and other things that I wanted to explain. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the Fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic, chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Hand waving. Astarion joining the war and siding with humanity was unexpected, but it was also a great boon. With Astarion on their side, humanity now had 3 sovereigns, matching the underworld's 3 sovereigns. However, the third sovereign of the underworld, Nether, remained seated on his throne, unmoving. This meant that, for now, humanity held the upper hand in the war. Sunny, atop Nightmare, didn't stop. He continued his march toward the rear of the left wing of the underworld army. Unlike him, who had multiple avatars, the right wing of the human army was unaware of what was happening on the left. But Sunny knew this was their chance to strike. Moving swiftly through the chaos, Sunny destroyed numerous stone statues. Unlike humans, no matter how much damage they sustained, the stone statues would always rise again unless their cores were destroyed. This posed a significant problem. Fighting an army stronger than yours was difficult, but fighting an army that didn't fear death was far worse. With all his transcendent strength, Sunny pierced through another stone statue with his spear, while Nightmare crushed another beneath its hooves. Before he realized it, Sunny had finally reached the rear of the underworld army. Behind him, other soldiers caught up, though their numbers were now half of what they had been at the start of the mission. Sunny glanced at the saints who had made it: Summer Night, Rzxs, Beastmaster, and Saint of Sorrow. He sighed. Other saints had been with them, but it seemed they had fallen along the way. Sunny addressed the saints. "We'll leave half of our unit to defend our rear. The rest will follow me to attack the left flank of the central army." Their unit was already small, composed of only the best of the best. Now, they had to leave half behind to protect their backs. If they attacked the central army without leaving soldiers to guard their rear, the left wing of the underworld army could easily send a detachment to attack from behind, trapping them completely. In the end, only Beastmaster remained from the Saints, along with half their unit. With Sunny leading the charge, the unit marched toward the central army. Just as Sunny had anticipated, the underworld army was waiting for them. "Prepare for engagement," Sunny shouted to the soldiers behind him. Ordering Nightmare to accelerate, Sunny used the momentum to thrust his spear, shattering the wall of stone statues and creating a breach. The unit didn't waste the opportunity the Lord of Shadows had created. They attacked with everything they had. Rzxs, in his transcendent transformation, crushed anything in his path. Sir Gilead, also in his transcendent transformation, struck down enemies with ease, his body seemingly intangible as attacks passed through him. Saint of Sorrow, in his gargoyle form, blocked every assault, protecting the masters nearby. The assault on the left flank of the underworld army didn't go unnoticed. The central human army launched a full-scale attack, joining forces with Sunny's unit. The combined assault resulted in a clear victory, dealing a heavy blow to the underworld forces. On the left flank, Rzxs punched through anything in his way, his fists obliterating stone bodies with overwhelming force. In front of him stood 3 saint-ranked statues. Normally, fighting multiple enemies played to his advantage, but these statues were emotionless, rendering his aspect useless. Still, Rzxs felt no fear. He was accustomed to fighting without relying on his aspect. The only difference was that his enemies didn't lack intelligence. The 3 statues advanced, attacking in unison. From his left, a statue wielding a sword slashed at his abdomen. Rzxs dodged to the right, evading the strike. He glanced to his right, expecting another attack, but found nothing. From behind, a statue thrust a spear toward Rzxs' heart. Reacting quickly, Rzxs turned and crossed his arms in front of his chest. The spear pierced through his hands but stopped just short of his heart. Rzxs yanked the spear to the side, pulling the statue with it. With a crushing grip, he smashed the statue's head. Tossing the statue aside, Rzxs turned to face the remaining 2. His hands were badly injured, making it difficult to use them. The 2 statues pressed their attack relentlessly, leaving Rzxs no opening to counter. After minutes of relentless assault, Rzxs finally found an opportunity. He shifted his weight to the right, preparing to strike one of the statues, but he froze as something stabbed him from behind. The headless statue he had just defeated was still active. Unnoticed, it had attacked him. The other 2 statues seized the moment. One punched Rzxs in the head, while the other drove its sword into his side. Jest coughed up blood but quickly regained his composure. He pushed the 2 statues back and destroyed the one behind him. He touched his wounds and laughed bitterly. This has to be some kind of joke. The 2 statues lunged at him again. With his injuries, dodging was nearly impossible. All he could do was defend. Using Jest's large frame to their advantage, the sword-wielding statue slashed at his knees, severing them. Jest collapsed, kneeling on the ground. He looked up at the sky, where Anvil was locked in his own battle. Never thought I'd die before you, little Vale. The sword-wielding statue swung its blade, severing Jest's head from his body. Jest of the Dagonet clan had fallen on the battlefield. Jest's death did not go unnoticed. In the sky, Anvil felt his domain weaken further as he lost another citadel, this one belonging to Jest. So, you've met your end, old man. Anvil felt no grief. He simply continued his fight against the supreme-ranked statue. Near Jest's body, the sound of galloping hooves echoed. Sunny, atop Nightmare, arrived and dispatched the 2 statues in mere moments. Looking down at Jest's lifeless body, Sunny sighed. He could have saved him, but he hadn't. There were many reasons for this, but the most important was that Jest had tried to kill Cassie. Sunny ordered Nightmare to move on, leaving Jest's body behind. Elsewhere, behind the underworld army, Nether sat on his throne, watching the clash of armies. With Astarion joining humanity in the assault on the central army, the underworld was clearly losing. Nether looked down at his hand and activated one of his vessel's aspect abilities. Aspect ability, the primordial. Description: as a descendant of the unknown, you are not shackled by form. You can be anything and everything, one and infinite. Before him, a man materialized out of nowhere. His black hair, streaked with gold, fell to his shoulders. His golden, lifeless eyes met Nether's gaze. Nether spoke a single command: go. The man hesitated for a moment, then obeyed. Nephis, fighting amidst the chaos, felt the world shift. She looked up at the dark sky, her eyes widening in disbelief. Raphael. In the sky, he stood, watching everything from above. Behind him, the world bent under his will, and out of nowhere, spears and swords materialized. The human army, their hopes momentarily lifted, now faced despair. Saints, masters, and awakeners looked up. Some laughed hysterically, while others screamed in terror. Tens of thousands of spears and swords pointed downward, ready to rain destruction. The descendant of God, the man feared by all. The devil, Raphael, the Black Emperor, had descended onto the battlefield. And under the gaze of the world, the Emperor spoke a single word. Fall. Like a steel rain seeking blood, the silver sky descended upon the human army. Their screams echoed across the battlefield. The scales of war had shifted decisively in favor of the underworld. It's a just isn't it? The one who loved the world is the one who will destroy it. Also, from now on there will be dark themes, so, anyway, sorry for the late upload. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the Fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic, chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Hand waving. Nothing. Both Adam and Sunny stared at the dome of darkness. Sunny's face grew paler than ever. The screams surrounding him were driving him mad. Managing 7 avatars while protecting his sister was already pushing him to his limits. We don't have time. We need to act fast, Adam urged. Sunny nodded grimly. Adam closed his eyes, unable to watch the unfolding devastation. Illa's father joining the war was the second worst possible scenario, the first being Nether himself taking action. If Nether intervened, humanity wouldn't last a minute. That's why Adam couldn't understand why Nether remained passive. He clearly had the power to end the war instantly, yet he held back. This hesitation was fortunate, as Adam had no contingency for Nether's direct involvement. If Nether moved before Sunny achieved supremacy, it would mean certain defeat. Sunny approached the vile thieving bird, his decision made. What use was freedom in a destroyed world? Standing before the hanged bird, Sunny turned to Adam. What do I need to do? When you kill it, I'll use my authority to return your fate and true name to you. Adam explained. I'll then enter your soul sea to halt the process. Since your fate won't fully merge with you, you'll have a chance to sever your strings of fate. Sunny listened intently before dryly remarking, I might as well kill myself now. Adam's expression remained unchanged. You weren't joking. Do I look like I'm joking? Adam countered. Did you even hear yourself? Sever my fate. That's insane. Even fate isn't immune to death, Adam said calmly. Your soul is a death realm where the departed reside. With death's power, cutting an already damaged fate is possible. Sunny took a deep breath. How would I even touch the strings of fate, let alone cut them? Weaver's mask, Adam answered simply. Tell me the truth, Adam, are you trying to kill me? Sunny demanded. While inside your soul, I'll bear most of the burden. Your only task is to sever your fate's strings. Adam's gaze remained steady. Sunny studied his eyes, then chuckled darity. Fine, you want to gamble. Then I'm all in. Within the dome of darkness, Neffy's barely blocked another flying sword with blessing. Gritting her teeth, she surveyed the carnage around her. Most of the fire keepers were already dead, some impaled by weapons, others bleeding out from grievous wounds. Neffy's could only watch helplessly as everyone she knew perished. She looked up at Raphael and summoned her white wings, launching herself toward him with a desperate horizontal slash. The attack proved futile. Raphael caught the blade barehanded without sustaining a scratch. As Neffy's struggled to free Blessing, Raphael's lifeless eyes met hers. Before she could speak, his fist drove into her abdomen with devastating force, pulverizing her internal organs. Though she healed instantly, Raphael continued his assault, grabbing her wrist with one hand while pummeling her mercilessly with the other. Nephis's body turned blue from the brutal beating, her bones shattered and organs pulped. Just as Raphael prepared another strike, he suddenly stopped and looked right. A sword came streaking toward him, slicing through space itself, yet it froze midair, blocked by some invisible force. Raphael released Neffys and leapt back as another blade materialized where he'd been standing. Before him stood a man clad in silver steel armor with a red cape, the left side of his abdomen completely gone, blood gushing from the massive wound. Such an injury would have killed anyone instantly, but Anvil didn't even glance at it. In his right hand, Anvil held Nephis's broken body, while his left hand crushed a stone statue's head to rubble. His face remained as emotionless as ever as he observed Neffys beginning to heal herself. Seeing this, Anvil tossed her onto one of his floating swords and guided her downward. He turned his gaze to Raphael, who returned the stare in kind. Silence stretched between them, then Anvil struck first. His sword cut through the space between them, reaching Raphael in an instant, yet stopping abruptly midair. Unfazed, Anvil attacked again with multiple swords, but none found their mark. Nothing, Anvil muttered. Somehow, his opponent had harnessed the power of nothing, the same force the gods had once used to seal the void. When Anvil tried to cut through the nothing between them, he failed. It was impossible to cut nothing because there was literally nothing to cut. If I can't cut nothing, then I'll cut what summons nothing. He pressed his attack, analyzing his opponent's secrets with each strike. Gradually, understanding dawned. This power was familiar. After all, his great citadel had once belonged to the demon of imagination. With this realization, Anvil slashed at Raphael, bending the world to his will as he severed the very concept of imagination. This time, his cursed sword didn't stop, it cut through the concept itself, and into Raphael's chest. Not content with this, Anvil thrust another sword forward, piercing Raphael's heart completely. The blade tore through flesh and shattered bone, destroying the vital organ. Anvil stared at Raphael and demanded, how? Despite the fatal wound, Raphael moved at light speed, punching through Anvil's armor and flesh. Now a gaping hole existed in Anvil's chest with Raphael's hand buried inside. I'm cursed to never die, Raphael intoned solemnly. Withdrawing his hand, Raphael watched as Anvil collapsed. Turning away, he resumed his slaughter across the battlefield. Anvil hit the ground hard, coughing blood onto earth already soaked red. As he struggled to rise, someone stepped on him. The man above him smiled. I truly thought you'd died here. Thankfully, you didn't. His grin widened into something manic as laughter bubbled forth. You're in quite a state, dear father. Reflections. Ki-song with her Titan puppet punched through the air toward the supreme statue in front of her, but even with her large structure and speed, the supreme statue dodged her attacks effortlessly. Ki-song wasn't surprised by this and continued punching space itself, and the supreme statues continued to dodge. The supreme statue didn't remain passive as it also attacked the Titan puppet. The space around the Titan puppet was being destroyed, the blood of the queen was gone every time it attacked. Suddenly, the supreme statue didn't have a place to dodge, as its back collided with the bones of the dead god. From both its right and left, two puppets emerged. They weren't as strong as the Titan puppet, but they were still a destructive force. Of course, this had always been the plan of the queen. In perfect design, the three puppets struck the supreme statue. With nowhere to escape, it was crushed by the three puppets. The bone behind it started to crack from the force of the punches. Finally, the queen stopped, and there where her enemy was, nothing was left but dust. The nightmare spell whispered to her ear, confirming the death of the supreme statue. The queen looked away and gazed at the sky. There, Anvil was in battle against the Black Emperor. In front of her eyes, Arvel slashed through the invisible barrier, cutting Raphael's chest, but he didn't stop as he thrust with another sword at Raphael's heart. Ki-song thought that the battle ended, but how wrong she was. Defying the laws of the world, the Black Emperor, even with his heart gone, punched through Anvil's armor and body, his hand appearing on the other side. The Black Emperor whispered something to Anvil, but Ki-song couldn't hear it. The king fell down to the ground, and the emperor stood above, declaring that he was the true ruler. With Anvil lost, only she and the abomination could go against him, yet that man didn't even glance toward them. So she was the only one who could confront Raphael. The Titan puppet moved in the battlefield, crushing the statues beneath it. Reaching Raphael, Ki-song looked at him, and so he did too. The silence stretched until Raphael attacked. Ki-song saw nothing, but suddenly her left shoulder was gone. She quickly transferred the damage to another puppet and repaired the Titan. Raphael attacked again, but this time she dodged the attack. Even though she couldn't see or sense anything, she could feel the world around her bind. This wasn't the best way, as she couldn't fully dodge it, but for her who could heal herself it was more than enough. Through the Titan puppet, she punched at Raphael, but just as she predicted, she couldn't penetrate the wall between them. But she didn't stop, she continued punching the wall. The Titan puppet's hand was destroyed, making her blood turn into mist. Raphael didn't remain passive, as he too attacked Ki-song, destroying her puppet, but every time he did so, she would simply repair it. Finally, Ki-song felt it. Huntons need oxygen for their brain to work, that's why they passively breathe. By making her blood a mist and making Raphael breathe it, she would have enough to make a single drop of her blood. Using her blood in Raphael, she controlled his body for a second, but that second was enough. She attacked with all the force she had, and this time there was no wall between them, and then her hand struck Raphael. But unlike she predicted, Raphael blocked her attack. How? Ki-song spoke in surprise. Raphael looked at the eyes of the Titan puppet, then spoke. Tim, the sovereign of myself. He stopped for a second, then spoke, let me show you how to use blood. In front of her eyes, Raphael's body became larger and larger by the second. His back was in a circular shape, like he was about to explode. Boom! Raphael's body exploded, and a ridiculous amount of blood surged out of his body. An infinite amount of blood continued to surge out. Ki-song looked above her and laughed. The sky had turned crimson. And from the sea of blood in the sky, a crimson eye emerged. Ki-song felt fear not for her, but for her daughters. Surviving this was possible for her, but her daughters didn't stand a chance. But when both of them were about to attack, they both felt it, making them stop. The crumble of a domain, and the birth of another. You're in quite a state, dear father. Anvil looked at Mordred. His body was slowly dying, so much that even pushing a saint had become hard. You've been hiding Itki, a rat, like always. Mordred chuckled at Anvil's words, then replied, "Of course. You didn't think that I would come to fight you head on, right? That's just pure stupidity. Coward." Mordred shook his head. No, this isn't cowardice. It's being smart." Anvil didn't reply and remained silent. Mordred sighed, then spoke, "You know, I always asked myself why you, dear father, tried to kill a kid and even sealed him for years. Of course, it's not for his power, right? If it is, then I will be really disappointed." Mordred remained silent for a moment, then chuckled. "No, it was stupid of me even thinking of that. Someone like you would take that power and shape it into a sword for you to use anytime." At this point, Anvil stopped listening. He just remained silent, waiting for death to open its doors for him. "Then is it because of your flaw, or because I'm not your son?" Anvil's face twitched for a fraction of a second, but Mordred saw it clearly. Sigh, "So it really was it. The reason you did it was because I'm the child of an abomination or something." "You are." Anvil spoke. The two remained silent. Then Mordred spoke, Do you know how I felt when I saw my own father killing me and sealing me there? I was only a kid. I didn't know what I did, yet I still asked for forgiveness, but no one answered me. You are no son of mine," Anvil spoke solemnly. Like the straw that broke the camel's back, everything inside of Mordred exploded. "I was trapped. Alone. Had no body, no senses. I was in hell looking at heaven. For I am the monster you have created. You were always a monster since you were born. Don't think of yourself as a human, you vile thing." Anvil spoke. Mordred's face changed. Anger took his mind, and he started attacking Anvil. Punched, stabbed, broke, destroyed. Mordred attacked Anvil with all he had. Ha 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 nanan. His laughter echoed throughout the battlefield, and some even heard it even in the chaos. He destroyed Anvil's body like he once did to him. As for Anvil, he felt sadness that he wouldn't see that flawless sword that he always wanted to create. Mordred took Anvil's body and raised it in the sky above his head, and then with all the force he had he split Anvil's body in half. Anvil's blood and organs fell upon Mordred. He drank it like it was wine, being drunk on it. Anvil's blood was so sweet that Mordred began crying while laughing at the same time. He finally did it, he got his revenge. And then Mordred felt something complete inside of him. His body and soul started to change. In the battlefield, Rain was fighting with Tamar and Telly of the White Feather. Her body was on the brink of collapsing. She looked at Tamar, who was far more injured than her. Since she couldn't idle anything, Tamar took all the burden. Clicking her teeth, she looked beside her at her brother, who was killing every abomination in his way. She looked back at Tamar, but then her eyes opened wide. There, in front of her, there were two Tamars. Not only her, but there was also another her. In all the battlefields, the same thing happened. Cassie looked at her clone in front of her through someone's vision. All of the clones remained motionless for a second, then they all moved at the same time like one being. Their heads moved and looked at the crimson sky, and grinned. There, in front of Ki Song, a figure emerged. His black hair and colorless eyes looked at the crimson eye with a grin. I truly want to thank you, Black Emperor. Without you, I wouldn't have gotten my revenge. Unfortunately, you are too dangerous to be left alive, but no one can kill you but yourself. So let me give you that honor. At the same time he was speaking, his body started to change. His black hair became longer, and some of his hair became gold in color. His colorless eyes remained the same. His body became larger, and his clothes changed. This body, this power, truly befit an emperor. Mordred, the Prince of Nothing, the Kingslayer, the one who shouldn't have been born, had achieved supremacy, thus becoming the second divine aspect user to achieve it. With the birth of the new sovereign, the scale of the war has finally shifted. Sovereign of Death, Cassie didn't know if she should be happy that Anvil was dead. Under normal circumstances, she would cry with happiness, but right now, it was the worst thing that could have happened. Not only had humanity lost one of its sovereigns, but that man had somehow achieved supremacy, defeating both Nephis and Sunny. Mordred was unpredictable, even with her future sight, it had always been difficult to foresee his actions. Trusting humanity's fate to him was impossible. Cassie watched the raging battle in the sky. It was devastating. The Crimson Eye unleashed thousands of attacks, each different from the last. Vet Mordred blocked them all and retaliated. The battle was in a stalemate. However, the battle on the ground was different. Humanity was crushing the underworld army. Thanks to Mordred's domain of reflections, humanity's numbers had effectively doubled. The central and right-wing armies were overwhelming the underworld's central and left-wing armies. As for the underworld's right wing, it had already been annihilated thanks to the Dreamspawn Astarion. Now, the left wing of humanity's army was advancing toward the underworld's central army. With the Lord of Shadows to the left, the Dreamspawn to the right, and humanity's central forces in front, there was no escape. Suddenly, everything changed. Cassie saw it. Not only her, but every seer did. The hole-shaped man in Fate was vanishing, and Fate was regaining its natural form. Then Cassie felt it, everyone did. A will capable of crushing mountains and splitting the sky. A will that once spilled the blood of gods. A will that even a sacred had no chance against, even in its weakest form. At first, there was nothing. Then Cassie heard screams. The left wing was gone, completely annihilated. There was nothing but mangled corpses and a sea of blood. Cassie felt fear. If a saint felt fear, then what about the awakened and masters? They ran, abandoning their positions, desperately trying to escape. From the beginning, they never stood a chance. Unfortunately for them, the wall of darkness was still blocking their path. With the left wing destroyed and many soldiers fleeing the battlefield, the underworld army had been reborn. Nether, seated upon his throne, lowered his hand. In front of him, a web of golden strings trembled. In the middle of the web was the silhouette of a man wearing a demon-like mask with 3 horns, attacking the golden strings. Finally, one string was cut, and like dominoes, the others fell to Upsilon. Nether's attack was never intended for the human army. It was to help the man within the web. As for why, only he knew. Adam moved toward Sunny and spoke, "Let's start." Sunny nodded. As Adam reached Sunny, his body became illusory and entered Sunny's soul sea. Looking at the dark soul sea with 7 dark suns overhead, Adam took a deep breath. Everything he and his father had done led to this moment. Outside, Sunny moved toward the vile thieving bird. Summoning a sword made of shadows, Sunny thrust it toward the vile bird's heart. The sword pierced effortlessly, offering no resistance. Golden illusory hands surged from behind Sunny, reaching into the dead body of the vile thieving bird. The golden hands found their prize and surged back out, bringing with them countless golden strings. The golden strings moved like sentient beings toward Sunny, entering his body and then his soul sea, trying to delve deeper but were halted by countless golden hands. From Adam's back, thousands of golden hands emerged, each stopping a golden string from moving. Now, Sunny. Summoning Weaver's mask, Sunny activated one of its enchantments. Where is my eye? Pain. Sunny felt unimaginable pain, so severe he was nearly rendered unconscious. Focus. We don't have time. The pain lessened slightly but remained unbearable. Inside the soul sea, Adam trembled. Due to his father's flaw, Adam experienced 3 times the pain Sunny did. In front of Adam, Sunny appeared within his soul sea. With a sword in hand, Sunny slashed at the golden string. Boom! The force was devastating, but the string remained unharmed. It was like trying to cut stone with a stick. Pour your will and everything you have into your attacks. Remember, you're the heir of death. Even fate cannot escape death. What do you think I'm doing? Damnation! Sunny felt his essence rapidly draining. If he had to guess, he had 5 seconds at best. He attacked more than 30 times in a single second, but it was futile. The string wouldn't budge. Suddenly, something changed. Sunny and Adam both felt it. Fate trembled, barely holding on. Now, Sunny. Sunny wasted no time, attacking with everything he had. Finally, the golden string snapped, and the rest fell like dominoes. Sunny felt something inside him complete. His soul sea trembled, and the shadows stirring within it knelt before him. Sunless had achieved supremacy. But Adam didn't relax. There was still work to do. His golden hands moved, attempting to reconnect the golden strings. Sunny once asked Raphael if he could create fate. Raphael answered no because he couldn't create something from nothing. He was neither god nor demon. But what if one could create new fate from an existing one? That was possible. By connecting golden strings, Adam guided fate to create a new destiny for Sunny. Adam moved rapidly, failing hundreds of times before finally connecting one string to another. At last, Adam finished. The fate he created did not tightly bind Sunny as before, it was normal, loose, like any other beings. Adam released the golden strings. They moved deeper, reaching where the vile thieving bird had once stolen Sunny's fate. Sunny unsummoned Weaver's mask as soon as Adam finished. Adam looked at Sunny and spoke, "Summon the spell." Sunny took a breath and summoned the nightmare spell. Name: Sunless. True name: Lost from Light. Rank: Supreme. Class: Titan. Shadow Cores: 7/7. Shadow Fragments: 1367 7/1000. Memories: Weaver's Mask, Shadow Lantern. Echoes: Shadows. Onyx Saint. Soul Serpent, Nightmare, Ravenous Fiend, Marvelous Mimic, Shadow Slayer. Attributes: Sovereign of Shadows, Flame of Divinity, Bloodweave, Boneweave, Soulweave, Jade Shell. Aspect: Shadow Slave. Aspect rank: Divine. Innate ability: Shadow Bond. Master: Changing Star. Aspect abilities: Shadow Control, Shadow Step, Shadow Manifestation, Shadow Incarnation, Shadow Legion. Aspect legacy: Shadow Dance. Flaw: Clear conscience. Fated and all memories before losing the spell were gone. Sunny was truly free from fate. But freedom came at a price. He had become Nephthys' slave again. Even though your fate is gone and everything you've done will be forgotten, it doesn't mean the past didn't exist. The spell and you both still remember. She spoke your true name. Sunny remained silent, then sighed. We don't have time. Adam nodded. Outside, Sunny dissolved into shadows. Rain looked at Tamar. Her body had been split in half. Tears flowed from Rain's eyes. She cried as if there were no tomorrow. Tamar was one of the many poor souls lost to Nether's attack. If it hadn't been for her brother, Rain would have died as well. Anger, hatred, sadness, there were too many emotions within her, and the world responded in kind. Outside the dome of darkness, clouds gathered, blocking out the sun. For the first time, it rained in Godgrave. Thunder echoed throughout the battlefield. Then a massive, devastating bolt of lightning struck the dome of darkness, causing it to crack. Sunny, who had already teleported outside the dome, struck it in the same place. Finally, the dome shattered, and light descended onto the battlefield. Both humans and statues gazed upward at the figure above them. His long black hair flowed gracefully in the wind. Iphis' onyx eyes, flecked with gold, surveyed the battlefield like a god. His black wings, streaked with gold, heat steadily against the sky. The sovereign of shadows, the heir of death, the bastard son of fate, the sword forged by the demon of fate, sunless, lost from light, had descended upon the battlefield. He spoke calmly yet commandingly, "Come forth, my shadows." The shadows moved. Why did I kill Tamar? I just hate her, there isn't any other reason, I just wanted her to die. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic, chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. Goddess of Light. Nephthys was paralyzed. Everything happened so fast that she didn't even know what to do. First, it was the underworld. Then Astarion appeared, the one who orchestrated her father's death. And yet, no matter how much she despised him, she had to acknowledge that he saved them. But it didn't end there. Out of nowhere, Raphael joined the battle, annihilating a quarter of their army. If it wasn't for Anvil confronting him, they would have lost. But even Anvil lost. That was already a foregone conclusion. His enemy was an immortal monster, after all. With Anvil on the brink of death, Mordred took the opportunity and achieved his long-awaited revenge, ascending to supremacy. And then the true monster moved. A single strike, just one, was enough to instill fear in all their hearts. Even she felt despair in that moment. If that monster had fought from the beginning, would they have stood a chance? The answer was no. Then why didn't he fight earlier? Why wait until his army was defeated? It was a question only the monster himself could answer. For the first time, Nefis truly felt she should drop her sword and accept defeat. But everything changed when the dome of darkness shattered, and the one she loved, Sunny, faced that monster after achieving supremacy, while she stood still, lost in despair. She looked away from Sunny and turned her gaze to the sky. She knew what she had to do, but she was terrified. No matter how used she was to pain, she still feared it. The pain of burning alive was the worst kind. She had known that pain her whole life. But what she was about to do would be 100 times worse. She was afraid, but she also knew she had no choice. That was the burden she had accepted as the savior. She looked at Sunny one last time and said, "I have a lot of questions. What's the slave thing? How did you achieve supremacy? But for you to answer me, we have to survive first, right?" She might not survive. She might fail. But at least she would fail trying. Summoning her white wings, she smiled at Sunny from afar. And thus, the daughter of the broken sword soared into the sky, returning to her origin, into the flames of destruction. Insane. This is insane. Sunny gritted his teeth, swinging his sword again. But before the strike could reach Nether, he dodged and counterattacked. Sunny quickly raised his sword to block Nether's hands. But then, Nether struck him from the side with his legs, sending him flying. Sunny spat out blood, something he thought he'd never do again. He's not even taking me seriously. No matter how much he attacked, Nether never used any abilities. Not even his will. He doesn't need to, Sunless. This is his domain. He sees everything past, present, and future. Nothing escapes his sight. That's the power of destiny. Sunny rushed forward, speaking to Adam in his mind. Then we just need to weaken his domain, right? Yes. He already had a plan for that. Reaching Nether, Sunny poured his will into his sword and swung down. Nether dodged to the right, only to block another thrust from behind. From every direction, 5 more Sunnies materialized, circling around him. Now, suddenly, a massive temple manifested from thin air. Standing at its gate was another Sunny. Nether looked around silently. Sunny inhaled deeply and all 8 Sunnies attacked at once. From the front and back, 2 Sunny clones struck, one swinging vertically, the other slashing horizontally, leaving Nether nowhere to escape. But the next moment, both were flying through the air. What just happened? Sunny clenched his jaw and rushed in again. From the shadows, a beast emerged, 7 horns, 4 arms, and a massive frame. Sunny, now in his shadow-spawned form, punched with the strength of a supreme titan. His punch broke the sound barrier and reached the speed of light. But Nether blocked it with case. That wasn't Sunny's goal. With another hand, he grabbed the wrist of the arm that blocked his punch, locking it in place. From above, a massive serpent descended, its jaw open wide, ready to devour both of them. And again, Sunny found himself inside the serpent's mouth, flying away. Seriously, what's going on? What is he doing? He did nothing. He's just so fast that time itself can't keep up. To put it simply, his speed is beyond time. Is that even possible? It is. When your control over will becomes flawless, anything is possible. Then how the hell do I hit him, let alone beat him? Stiemple. Match his speed. Easy to say, hard to do. Still, Adam was right. There was no other way to reach Nether but to become just as fast. And Sunny took pride in his speed. All of Sunny's shadows returned to him, engulfing his body. Buffed by 8 shadows, his strength and speed multiplied 8-fold. Sunny stared at Nether and breathed in. He was a shadow. And shadows have no fixed form, they endlessly change. And if his form could change, so could his will. What am I? 1 a.m. fate. The inevitable. The unchanging outcome. His will began to shift, and he wasn't the only one who noticed. Deep within Sunny's soul sea, through their connection, Adam poured his will into Sunny's. With Adam's domain over fate, Sunny's will became more refined, sharper, stronger. Finally, he opened his eyes. I am lost from light. He dashed toward Nether. At first, Nether didn't move. But then, he did. Nether blocked Sunny's sword and tried to throw him away, but Sunny vanished into the shadows only to reappear on the other side. He rotated mid-air and struck Nether, forcing him to step back. There was no damage, but Sunny grinned. He had reached him. Sunny raised his sword, ready to strike again, then stopped. What the hell? His domain, he felt it overlapping with another. No, not overlapping, coexisting. Sunny looked up and his mouth fell open. Nephies. In the clouded sky, a new sun emerged. White flatties blazed across the heavens. In the center of the sun, the silhouette of a woman, everyone beneath it burned in brilliant white fire. And the impossible happened, even the shadows burned. Then, the blazing white sun descended. Download app. Ha ha ha. Look, I know I said I would be back soon and that soon became more than a month, and I really have no excuse. Well, the good thing is I'm back uploading it at least. Now for my next announcement. I've finally started my new fanfic and uploaded 3 chapters there. The name, Shadow Slave, Eternal Life. I don't know why, but I've something with the world Eternal Amau. If you have any questions, you can find me in the official Shadow Slave Discord. Just go to the Fanfiction room, and search for mine, it's named after the FF name. Leave a review on this fanfic, chapter and some power stones, so more people can read it. See you again next time. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.